The hills are quiet now. The last golden blush of the sun has slipped behind the rugged ridges of Anatolia, leaving the landscape draped in a soft violet hush. Far below, the world still breathes. Faint traces of life lingering in the hum of a distant shepherd's flute, or the final bark of a dog in some forgotten village. But up here, among the olive groves that cling to the dry, crumbling earth, silence settles like a second skin. The sky deepens into ink. Stars begin to pierce the canopy above, one by one, as if lit from behind by hands long gone. The wind does not speak often here, but when it does, it moves gently through the branches of trees so old they no longer remember the shape of youth. The leaves stir not with urgency, but with memory. They have seen centuries pass below their roots, and tonight they watch again, as the light fades, as the shadows lengthen, as the convent prepares for sleep. Nestled into the slope of a forgotten hillside, its walls made from pale stone, warmed by centuries of sun, the convent does not call attention to itself. There are no spires, no gilded gates, no crowds of pilgrims, only a small wooden door set deep into the arch of an ancient architrave, softened by moss, worn by wind. Above it, a mosaic has nearly vanished. A quiet Christ, a halo fading into the ochre, watching with eyes that have not closed in hundreds of years. Here, everything is slower, everything is smaller. Time does not press forward as it does in cities. It does not crash and tumble like waves in the harbor of Constantinople. Instead, it folds into itself like fabric laid gently into a chest. It rests. You've arrived at the hour when the world turns inward, when the bodies that labored all day begin to ache, when the firewood is stacked neatly by the hearth, when bowls are emptied, hands washed, and candles lit one by one in the long corridor. This is the hour of retreat, not in fear, but in devotion. Here, behind these walls, lives are shaped not by ambition, but by rhythm. The rhythm of prayer, the rhythm of silence, the rhythm of breath echoing softly in the cold of a stone chapel long after the final word has been spoken. The nuns who live here do not rush, do not raise their voices, do not claim space. They move like water through the structure, like incense curling through the rafters, like memory held not in books but in the body, in gestures, in habits, in the way a lamp is lit at dusk, without needing to be told. You do not need to prepare anything for this journey. There is no need to remember names, nor track dates, nor analyze the politics of emperors or patriarchs. What matters here is smaller, closer, and slower. The worn feel of a wooden floor under bare feet, the warmth of a woolen blanket folded neatly at the edge of a narrow bed. The scent of candle wax melted and remelted through 100 vigils. These are not grand moments of history, but quiet repetitions, actions done again and again, night after night, until they become sacred not by decree, but by softness. You are not here to observe. You are here to rest, to breathe, to wander slowly through another life, another silence, another night. And if in this drifting you find something resembling comfort, if these stories, softly told, help you sleep, then I gently invite you to remain. Perhaps if your eyes remain open by the end, you may consider subscribing to this channel or leaving a kind word, but only if you wish. Only if the world has not already softened into dreams around you. For now all that matters is stillness. So let us walk now, not quickly, but slowly, so slowly, through the garden gate and beneath the hush of ancient trees. Let us pass under the mosaic that no longer shines, feel the cool breath of the chapel as it greets us, and listen for the faint sound of a bell that may not have rung yet, but soon will. The night is waiting, the convent sleeps, and we too may begin to let go. There is a path that does not appear on any map, nor is it spoken of by name. It emerges only when the light is soft enough, when the air grows still, and when the body, tired from its daily gestures, begins to seek not direction, but release. This path begins somewhere near the edge of what is remembered and what is imagined. Winding through a gentle fold in the hills where the earth becomes dry and warm, and the colors lose their edge under the weight of dusk, you walk slowly, not as if going somewhere, but as if returning, not to a place you've been, but to a place your body already understands. The ground beneath your feet is textured with centuries of presence, smooth in some places from the repetition of bare soles, brittle in others where time has broken through. Stones embedded in the earth rise like vertebrae beneath your steps, and tufts of dry grass sway gently in the breeze, brushing against your ankles with a sound so soft it feels like memory. Around you the land is quiet, not because it is empty, but because everything here has learned how to wait in silence. The olive trees that line this path do not form neat rows, nor were they planted with order in mind. They seem to grow where the earth chose them, their twisted trunks rising from the soil, like sculptures shaped by wind and years rather than by hands. Each tree is distinct, some leaning as though whispering to one another, others standing crooked in solitude. Their bark is dark and deeply furrowed, textured like dry skin that has weathered many lives. Their branches, heavy with silver-green leaves, reach out and over the path, forming a kind of canopy through which the fading light filters, fragmenting the dusk into shifting patterns. When the wind moves, it does not rustle. It breathes, stirs the branches in long, slow sighs, carrying the scent of sap of dust. It's a stone that has held the sun all day and is now releasing it gently into the dark. The air here is thick with stillness, and yet every detail hums quietly as though the world is listening. There is a scent in the air that does not belong to a single thing, but to the mingling of many of crushed leaves, of dried time blooming in the cracks of the stones, of sun-warmed bark, and the faint sweetness of distant fig trees. Beneath it all, there is the steady presence of old stone, cool, worn, and quiet, the scent of a place that has known many nights and welcomed each one without fear. You breathe it in, slowly, and feel it settle behind your eyes, under your ribs, deep in your chest. It is not a fragrance meant to excite or awaken, but to slow, to draw your attention inward, to call the body gently back into itself, as if reminding you that rest, too, is a form of memory. And as you continue walking, that scent becomes not merely background, but a kind of invitation, a silent guide, encouraging your body to forget its urgency and soften its edges. It is a reminder that time here moves differently, that the world beyond the trees is no longer the one in which you must remain. The landscape here asks for nothing. It does not require your admiration, nor does it change to meet your expectations. It simply exists, steady, weathered, enduring, and in its endurance, it invites you to stop resisting. The further you walk, the less you think. The less you think, the more you feel. Each step is slower than the last, not because your body is weary, but because the space around you encourages pause, encourages softness, encourages presence. And as you continue along the path, something begins to release, not all at once, but gradually. Like the loosening of a garment tied too tightly around your chest. You begin to notice the way your arms sway a little more freely, the way your jaw no longer clenches, the way your breathing becomes deeper, rounder. There is no destination, no arrival point, only the act of entering. Ahead, almost imperceptibly at first, the wall appears. It does not rise high. It does not glimmer. It is built from the same pale stone as the hills themselves, stacked without adornment, its edges softened by time and lichen. This wall does not guard, but holds. It does not divide, but marks the threshold between one rhythm of life and another. Beyond it lies the convent, not loud or grand, not imposing or proud, but present, calm and cloaked in silence. The kind of silence that does not arise from absence, but from fullness, from being enough. It is the type of wall that has been touched 1,000 times, perhaps by fingers trembling with grief, or with reverence, or by hands simply carrying water from the spring. It is not meant to keep anyone out, but to suggest that something within should be entered slowly. The gate is simple, a wooden door framed in arching stone, its surface darkened by sun and oil, its grain still visible beneath centuries of touch. There is no lock, no ornamentation. Only a small iron ring that sits flush against the wood, cool to the touch, worn to a softness that tells of countless fingers, careful, deliberate, lifting it in the evening again and again. Above the arch, a faded mosaic crumbles, its golden tesserae dulled by wind and time. A face, barely discernible, looks down from within the fading blue. Christ, perhaps, or a saint whose name has been lost. His gaze neither stern nor kind, but eternal, watching, waiting. The gate is not closed to you. It waits in the way that ancient things wait, not impatiently, not expectantly, but with certainty that all who seek stillness will eventually arrive. Before you cross this threshold, the world seems to hold its breath. The wind, which has followed you like a quiet companion, stills. The leaves fall silent. Even the distant sounds, a dog's bark, a bird's call, seem to recede into the earth. There is only the gentle pulse of your own breath and the weight of your presence in this moment, balanced perfectly between what lies behind and what lies ahead. You do not knock. You do not announce yourself. This is not a place where you are expected. It is a place that waits quietly for those who come without demand. And in that waiting, it has become vast, wide enough to contain all the things that were too heavy to carry further. You feel that, even now, standing still, you step forward. One foot first, then the other, slowly, as though moving through a veil. The stone under your soles is cooler now. The earth gives way to flagstone, smooth, worn, and echoing faintly with each step. The door does not resist you. It opens with the sound of time unfolding, a soft creak, the murmur of wood against stone, the quiet acknowledgement of passage. Behind you, the gate remains ajar. Ahead, the darkness deepens, not in threat, but in invitation. It welcomes you the way still water welcomes the moon. Without need, without reaction, it simply receives. And you, now within it, are not visitor, but participant. Inside, the air changes. It is heavier, yet gentler. It holds the scent of melted wax, of linen folded in cedar chests, of oil pressed into the seams of wood. Somewhere nearby, the faintest trace of incense lingers, not fresh, not lit, but remembered in the walls. The quiet here is not empty. It is full of breath, it's full of intention. It's full of lives lived in repetition, so steady that it became prayer. Every surface seems to carry the imprint of 1,000 hands, 1,000 evenings, 1,000 slow crossings of the same room in the same order. You are not alone. You are surrounded by a silence shaped by generations. You feel yourself change. Not in any dramatic way, not all at once. But something begins to shift, a slowing of thought, a deepening of presence. Your arms feel heavier, not with burden, but with rest. Your shoulders loosen, your breath lengthens. There is no longer a need to decide anything. The space decides for you, and what it asks of you is simple: to be here, to listen, to move slowly, to let the hush of the convent become your own. It is not a silence you must earn, nor one you must understand. It is a silence that welcomes, that holds, that breathes with you. The threshold beneath your feet does not appear to mark any sudden change, and yet everything has changed. Behind you, the natural world continues, the hills, the trees, the dust suspended in the air. But already it feels distant, like a rhythm your body no longer follows. Within the wall, what reigns is not silence as absence, but silence as fullness. It surrounds you not as emptiness, but as texture. You are no longer outdoors, yet the breath of the olive trees lingers faintly on your clothes, as if they too wish to follow you a little further in. Just a few steps inside, the stone path widens slightly, as if offering a place to pause. To your left, a small niche in the wall holds an old lamp, unlit now, but still coated in the traces of soot and resin, its handle smooth from countless hands. It is the kind of object that receives no notice, and yet it has been witness to every hour of this passage. Every arrival, every farewell. You can almost imagine a sister lighting it each night, as she has done for years, her gesture precise, her gaze lowered, her breath steady. Not out of ceremony, but out of rhythm. Because in this place, light is not struck, but continued. Somewhere deeper in the building, you hear it, a soft tapping, like wood on stone, followed by a brief hush, and then the sound again. Perhaps it is the end of evening prayer. Perhaps it is a broom sweeping gently across a tiled floor. Or perhaps it is only the echo of an old door closing slowly on its own. Whatever the source, the sound does not startle. It simply reminds you that this place is alive, though it does not announce its life loudly. Everything moves here, but gently, carefully, as if the air itself were sacred. You are aware now of your breath, how it moves slower than before. You are aware of your limbs, how they have begun to loosen, how they no longer anticipate the next step. In this space, the body begins to forget its instructions, its tension, its posture, its urgency. The mind, too, begins to soften. Thoughts arrive but do not press. They come and go like shadows passing over a courtyard, without sharp edges, without weight. You are not required to hold them. You're not required to understand. Behind you, the wooden gate stands slightly ajar. Through it, you can still see the olive branches swaying, silver in the moonlight, whispering things you no longer need to decipher. You have stepped into another. You step further into the convent, and already the world begins to open differently. The corridor widens, but not in grandeur, only in light, as though the architecture itself understands that awe here is not summoned through scale but through quiet. Before you lies the courtyard, hidden within the stone shell of the building like a breath held at the center of a prayer, preserved not for beauty, but for rhythm. It is not large, nor symmetrical, nor adorned with anything that draws the eye. Yet the moment you cross its threshold, something within you eases, as if this space had been shaped not for observation, but for arrival, not to impress, but to hold. The walls that enclose it are modest, humble, sun-warmed, and softly streaked by years of rain. Their surface is worn not smooth, but tender. Vines trace them without order, winding freely over plaster that is cracked and peeled, revealing the simple stone beneath. The walls do not speak, and yet they seem to know. It is not ruin, but memory, not neglect, but age, unapologetic and whole. Above, the sky reveals itself like a slow exhale. It is framed by 4 cloistered walls, held tenderly as though the courtyard were a bowl turned gently toward the stars. There are no lanterns here, no artificial lights. Only the pale, patient moon and stars scattered wide, like seeds not yet ready to grow. The moon casts its light without ceremony, brushing gently over the surface of a central well, glinting along the tiles of a distant rooftop, tracing the topmost leaves of citrus trees that grow imperfectly, but freely, at the edges of the garden. Their branches lean where they wish, heavy with fruit that glows faintly orange in the dimness, as if the night had kindled something quietly within them. A breeze moves through the leaves without sound, and in it, you can hear something like thought before it becomes language. Stand still, and the moment does not pass, lingers and deepens. You walk without knowing how or why. The stones beneath your feet are uneven, some warm from the residue of the day, others cooled by evening moisture that settles between them like dew made of breath. There is a bench, low, wooden, softened by time, and upon it a folded cloth that still holds the shape of a seated figure. You do not see her, but you imagine a sister who comes here every night, alone, just before the final bell. You imagine her quiet gaze lifted to the sky, her hands resting in her lap, not folded, not clenched, simply resting, as though she, too, had been placed here by time, not by choice. The courtyard allows for such rituals. It does not demand presence, but it rewards it. In this place, your body chooses stillness, not from fatigue, but from trust. At the center of the courtyard stands a well, unadorned and round, its stones dark with age and touch. A pail rests beside it, not dangling, but tucked away as if it had been set down only moments ago. You approach it, not to draw water, but to meet it. The stone is cool and worn, a shallow groove along the edge where countless hands have reached. Again and again, perhaps in need, perhaps in prayer. This is not the kind of well written about in stories. It does not offer wishes. It offers rhythm. Its water is not miraculous. It is simply present, and in that presence, something sacred. You rest your fingers along the rim and let the cold rise into your skin. You do not need to peer into it. You already know what you would find. Stillness, and echo, and depth. A narrow garden grows in one corner, low and near the wall. The scent reaches you first. Thyme, mint, lavender, and sage, their oils released into the air by the evening's breath. You recognize them, not by sight, but by the way they trigger memory. Not a specific one, but the kind that lives in the body, in the back of the throat, in the chest. You picture a sister walking barefoot among the beds, her hand brushing the ground, her hands moving with quiet precision as she pinches leaves between her fingers. She does not harvest, she tends. The plants are not hers, nor the convent's. They belong to the cycle of use and return. These herbs will flavor broth, will steep in hot water, will hang to dry beside a window. Their usefulness is their devotion. No voices rise, no sandals echo, and yet the space breathes. You feel it. A rhythm not made of sound but of intervals, pauses between movements, between duties, between thoughts. The courtyard is not animated by activity, but by readiness. You sit, perhaps on the stone lip of the garden, or on the edge of the well, or on the bench left behind. Wherever your body settles, the place receives it without resistance. There is no interruption. It's only the slow unfolding of presence. It does not ask questions. It does not require explanation. It simply holds. The air wraps around you now. Not cold, not warm, but balanced. The kind of air that heightens awareness. In it, you detect the faintest thread of smoke, the final sigh of something extinguished. It clings to the skin in the way memories sometimes do. Unexpected, elusive, but strangely familiar. Somewhere nearby, through one of the arched passageways, a flame has been put to rest. You picture a sister covering the lamp with care, adjusting the wick, cupping her hand around the glow until it fades. You will never know her name or the sound of her voice. But she is here. You feel her presence in the exact way the light now falls on the stone. You lift your gaze. The stars have not shifted, and yet they seem closer. The sky does not press down. It invites upward. You breathe in slowly, not deeply, but fully. And in that moment, you do not name anything. You do not analyze. You only allow. You allow the dark. You allow the silence. You allow the fact that you do not need to do anything but be here. This night is not waiting for a conclusion. It simply wants to continue.
Oh.
You are not learning history. You are remembering something your body once knew. How to be still in the presence of something vast. There is no signal to leave, no rustling of robes, and no sound of hinges, but you feel it. The quiet invitation to rise again, to carry this rhythm with you into whatever chamber comes next. You do not know its name, nor what it holds. But the courtyard, in its gentleness, has given you something to bring with you. The gift of slowing, of not seeking, of simply belonging. You stand, not to go, but to continue. Deeper into the hush, deeper into the slow unfolding of sacred space. You step further into the convent, and already the world begins to open differently. The corridor widens, but not in grandeur, only in light. Before you lies the courtyard, hidden within the stone shell of the building like a breath held at the center of a prayer. It is not large, nor symmetrical, nor adorned with anything that draws the eye. Yet the moment you cross its edge, something in you quiets further, as if this place had been waiting for you. Not to impress, but to hold. The walls that enclose it rise modestly, softened by centuries of sun and rain. Vines creep along their edges, and the plaster has cracked in places, revealing the humble stone beneath. It is not ruin, but texture. It is not neglect, but age, settling slowly and without shame into its own shape. The sky opens above you now, framed by the cloister on all four sides. Stars are visible, scattered like seeds across the night. The moon is low and white, and its light touches everything with a quiet hand. The surface of the central well, the tiled roof beyond, the tops of the small citrus trees planted in uneven rows around the garden's edge. These trees are not carefully pruned. Their leaves spill freely, casting soft shadows across the gravel. One of them bears fruit, and you notice it without urgency. Small, round oranges, glowing faintly in the dark, as if lit from within. There is no sound but your own breath, and the faintest trace of trickling water from somewhere unseen. You move slowly now across the courtyard, the soles of your feet pressing into the uneven stones. Some are warm still from the day, while others are cool and slightly damp from the evening air. Beneath a column, you notice a wooden bench, softened by year's end, covered in a folded woolen cloth. Perhaps a sister sat here just before Compline, gazing upward at the sky in quiet reflection. Or perhaps she sits here every evening at this exact hour without fail. There are no paths to follow, no signs. The space does not instruct you, it receives you. It allows your body to find stillness without command, to choose slowness without guilt. At the center of the courtyard stands a well, its shape round and solid, made of stacked stone worn down at the lip where countless hands have rested. A pail hangs from a simple pulley above, and though it does not move, you sense that it is used daily, not as relic, but as rhythm. Water is drawn not for ceremony, but for living, to rinse a basin, to nourish a pot of lentils, to cool a weary forehead. You approach it not to peer in, but to feel its presence. It is quiet, and yet it speaks. Of repetition, of survival, of the steady echo of need met with care. You rest your fingers on its edge and feel the cold of the stone seep slowly into your skin. In one corner, a small herb garden grows in narrow beds. Thyme, mint, lavender, and sage. You can smell it before you see it. The scent drifts toward you like a memory, soft and green, woven into the fabric of the courtyard itself. These plants are not decorative. They're practical, familiar, sacred in their own way. You imagine a sister moving barefoot among them just before dusk, gathering a few stems in silence, her hands moving with the practiced ease of someone who has done this every day for years. Her gestures would be small, almost invisible, and yet each one a kind of prayer. There are no voices here, no footsteps, no song, and yet the courtyard feels alive, breathes with a rhythm you are only beginning to recognize, a rhythm made not of sound, but of pauses, of patience, of presence. It is not the kind of life that announces itself, but the kind that waits to be felt. You sit now, perhaps on the bench or perhaps on the stone itself, and let yourself be still, not because you must, but because everything around you gently asks it. Because nothing here pulls at you, because this stillness is not emptiness. It is full of things that no longer rush. You pass under another archway, narrower now, as though the stone is reminding you to bow your head. Not from obligation, but from instinct. The passageway turns slightly, its corners worn smooth, and then opens without warning into the refectory. The convent's quietest chamber. It's not because it is still, but because everything within it seems to be listening. It is a long room, low-ceilinged, wrapped in thick walls that trap both warmth and time. There are no paintings, no icons, no embellishments on the pale plaster. The only ornament is the grain of the wood-worn tables, long and heavy, lined with benches on either side. Each one holds the memory of countless silent meals, of hands resting gently near ceramic bowls, of glances exchanged and lowered again, not in fear but in reverence for the space between words. The air in the refectory is different from that of the courtyard. It holds the scent of wood smoke, of roasted grain, faint anise and salt. Not pungent, but persistent. As though the air itself remembers what was cooked here the night before, and the night before that. There is no candlelight now, only the last blue breath of twilight, filtering through a high narrow window. It casts long shadows across the table, turning the ordinary into something nearly sacred. You pause at the threshold, letting your body adjust to the hush. The silence here is denser. It rests not on the absence of sound, but on the presence of 100 meals shared in stillness. You imagine the sisters sitting here, each one in her place, neither assigned nor random. A silent agreement formed over years, perhaps decades. No one gestures, no one hurries. Their hands move in the same slow rhythm, lifting spoon to mouth, lowering spoon to bowl. Again and again, you pictured one sister at the far end, slightly hunched, her back shaped by time and labor. She cradles her spoon as though it were not a utensil, but an extension of her own quiet need. The bowl before her steams gently, the scent rising and mingling with the shadows. She does not look up. She does not need to. Her place in this rhythm is known. In front of you, at one end of the table, lies a single wooden spoon. It rests upon a folded cloth, whose threads have softened with years of quiet handling, the fibers yellowed slightly by age, by oil, by time. The spoon is not polished, not adorned. Its handle has been smoothed by countless fingers, curved by the pressure of small daily gestures, repeated endlessly, lifting, stirring, pausing. You approach it slowly, not with the intent to claim it, but with the reverence one reserves for relics of ordinary holiness. It is small, plain, its bowl slightly shallow, as if worn thinner by use. To touch it, or even to imagine doing so, is to make contact with the lives that have shaped it. Hands hardened by fieldwork, fingers chapped by winter water, palms that folded in prayer before and after each meal. This spoon has been cradled in the still moments before dawn and held again in the hush that follows nightfall. It has moved through steam, through broth, through silence. It has passed from hand to hand, from bowl to bowl, never with haste, never with pride. It is sacred not because of what it is, but because of how it has been held. By the hungry, by the weary, by the faithful. Each one leaving behind not a mark, but a memory. And now, in this chamber of stillness, the spoon remains. Unclaimed, but not forgotten. Simple, but not unnoticed. Waiting quietly, like so many other things in this place, to be part of the rhythm again. You lower yourself onto the nearest bench, the wood creaking softly beneath you, acknowledging your presence without protest. The grain of the table is cool under your fingers, its surface bearing the quiet scars of daily devotion. Knife marks, water rings, a burn that never quite faded. You lay your hands flat against it and close your eyes. In that gesture, you are no longer outside the ritual. You are within it. You are part of it, just as the walls, the spoon, and the shadows are. There is no feast. There is no sermon. Only this, a table, a bench, a moment held open by silence. A breeze slips in through the high window, as if the room itself had exhaled. Gently, thoughtfully, and in that breath, something lingers. It carries with it a scent you cannot fully name, a fusion of herbal sharpness and soft sweetness. Like crushed mint steeped in warm air, or the memory of dried lavender warmed by sun and stone. Not a scent that belongs entirely to the present. It feels older, layered with time, as if the air had moved through many places before reaching you, drifting first over the garden's low beds, brushing past the silent citrus trees, winding around a sister's sleeves as she moved between chores. Her steps unhurried, her breath steady. It brushes the back of your neck like a whisper, not cold, not warm, just present, like a hand resting briefly on the nape. A hand that once knew your name and needs no reminder. You wonder whether this air remembers the rustle of robes in dim corridors, the scent of oil on a sister's wrist, the quiet tremble of a voice mouthing grace before supper. But you do not rise to trace its path. You do not lean to chase its source. You'll let it pass through you slowly, gently, as unnoticed by the world as breath, but kept in the deepest chamber of the body, where wordless memory lives. Farther down the table, there is a shallow bowl, abandoned yet not forgotten, and in its stillness, it speaks of continuity. It holds only traces of lentil broth, dry at the rim where the last sip lingered, golden at the base like a small sun left behind, still faintly fragrant if you lean close enough. The bowl is chipped, its edge imperfect, its glaze cracked with a web of hairline fractures that shimmer faintly under the fading light. These flaws do not speak of damage, they speak of use, familiarity, of care offered so often that even clay remembers. You imagine the sister who once held it with both hands, fingers wrapped gently around its warmth, thumbs resting along the rim not out of habit, but of trust. The way hands learn to cradle something essential, unspoken. She does not glance around her. She lifts the bowl as though lifting a truth she has carried since before she entered this room. Her breath warms its contents, her silence blesses them. The broth may have been simple lentils, garlic, a single bay leaf, but in this place, simplicity is abundance. And as she brings the bowl to her lips, she receives more than nourishment. She receives affirmation that there will be another meal tomorrow, another bowl, another silence in which to eat it. When the meal ends, she sets it down not with ceremony, but with reverence. A quiet closing of the loop between offering and receiving, between need and grace. A single candle sits near the center of the table, its wax pooled at the base in soft, uneven rings, as though time itself had melted there and cooled into permanence. The wick is long since gone out, curled slightly at the tip, blackened not by accident, but by steady, intentional use. Its presence is not dramatic, nor does it seek attention. It offers no light now, and yet it radiates something fuller than flame. Memory. a memory of light shared in silence, of hands reaching across bowls, of shadows cast not by fear, but by the softness of evening. This candle has seen the ending of many meals, the drawing down of day, the brief flare of brightness before the hush settles completely. You resist the urge to light it, not because the room is already lit, but because the darkness it rests in feels right, earned, deserved. It feels whole, as though the flame has not been lost, but absorbed, carried now in the walls, in the table, in the breath of whoever last dined here, and so you leave it untouched. You let it rest in its stillness, like everything else in this place, symbol not of absence, but of clarity, that what must be known, must be received, can indeed be seen, even in the dark. At your feet, the stones are worn smooth from centuries of movement, not hurried, not loud, but steady, humble, and faithful. These stones have witnessed the slow choreography of daily life. It's a quiet ritual of bodies passing between stove and table, between door and hallway, again and again. To wear is not accidental, it is earned. You imagine the sisters walking here barefoot, the soles of their feet growing accustomed to the stone's texture, each step a continuation of the last, not dramatic, but essential. Their steps would have been soft but sure, their rhythm aligned with the breath of the place, rising early, returning late, always present. Their presence is not recorded in ink or scripture, but in the very ground beneath you, in the slight dip your foot now rests upon. You press your heel gently into one of the grooves and feel the depth, the subtle curve, like the inside of a worn bowl. It is not the mark of force, but of repetition, of bodies that belonged to the silence. You wonder how many seasons it took to wear that groove, how many footsteps, how many intentions. And in that wondering, you understand that this path was not created by necessity alone, but by devotion. The slow, patient devotion that never seeks recognition and yet transforms stone over time. In one shadowed corner, a pair of sandals rests neatly against the wall, positioned with the kind of care that suggests both habit and reverence. Their straps are cracked, not from neglect, but from countless gestures of being fastened and unfastened in silence. The soles have thinned unevenly, molded by the rhythm of a particular gait, perhaps slow, perhaps limping, perhaps graceful in its age. The leather has darkened in places, softened by time, by floor dust, by the subtle imprint of devotion. You do not need to see the woman who wore them to understand her. Her life is inscribed into the shape of these shoes, in the slight inward tilt of one sole, in the frayed edge of a strap likely adjusted too many times before dawn. You feel a strange tenderness rise in your chest, not for the sandals themselves, but for the quiet they embody. They speak of a life lived entirely within these walls, each step a silent offering, each movement folded into ritual, into stillness, into service so steady it left no echo, only presence. The refectory is not lifeless. It listens, it receives, it remembers. Its silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of meaning carried in small, quiet acts. The setting down of a spoon, the folding of a napkin, the slow, measured sipping of warm broth. Its walls do not echo because they absorb everything. Glances exchanged without speech, shoulders brushing in passage, a sigh let out after a long day's work. These are not stories captured in ink or retold in legend. They are stories lived only once and then left behind, not forgotten, but imprinted in the grain of the wood. In the hollows of the stone floor, in the soft folds of linen, left folded on a bench. And when you breathe here, you breathe in all of it. The quiet weight of devotion, the dignity of small gestures, the sacredness of repetition. These are not moments to be recorded. They are moments that live on in the wood, in the air, in the way your breath slows, just by being here. You rise, but do not leave. Instead, you walk the length of the table, your fingertips drifting across the wood like a reading of Braille. But the table speaks, not in words but in temperature, in texture, in traces of warmth left by past hands. You pass bowls turned upside down, a fork tucked neatly beneath a folded cloth. A small crack in the surface of the wood filled in with something darker, like a wound cared for. At the far end, there is a small alcove, barely visible at first, nestled between two stone pillars. Within it, a pitcher rests on a stone shelf, simple and unadorned. Its spout is chipped, its handle smooth. You reach out not to lift it but to acknowledge it. You place your fingers just beside its base, not touching, but near enough for intention. It's to say, I see you. You were used. You were needed. You served. And you remain. You return to the bench and sit once more. This time, not as a visitor, but as someone gently absorbed by the rhythm of the space. You feel it now, not as atmosphere, but as a current, a living flow that hums beneath every motion. You imagine yourself here each evening, not arriving with purpose, but being drawn by the pull of quiet ritual. Not reenacting, but remembering something ancient. Not performing, but entering into a space already set, already whole. There is nothing theatrical here, no grand meaning to chase. It's just the repetition of breath and spoon, of bowl and bench, just presence. And in that presence, something older than memory takes shape. A form of prayer passed not by sermon, but by the gentle weight of practice. A sacred rhythm that asks for no explanation. And in that final stillness, with nothing left to observe, a realization softens across your chest like dusk falling on the room. The refectory, too, is a prayer. But it is not one spoken aloud, not one written in ink or memorized by heart. It is a prayer lived, humble, embodied, steady. It is shaped not by doctrine, but by the way hands reach for bowls, the way silence expands between sips, the way gratitude is offered without a single word. It is practiced not by scholars, but by those who carry quietly, who receive without pride, who give without fanfare. In this room, holiness is not separate from life. It is life, textured, quiet, rhythmic. You feel it settling into you like breath after long exertion, not an answer. It's just presence, just return. You pass under the stone arch as though crossing an invisible threshold, one not marked by ornament or sound, but by a subtle shift in breath, in gravity, in the pace of the heart itself. The space you enter does not impose, it receives. It does not open abruptly, but unfolds gradually, like a room remembering how to welcome. The air is still thick, not with smoke or incense, but with quiet. A quiet so deep it feels like velvet draped over the senses, muffling the remnants of the world you've just walked through. There is no sound, not even of movement, and yet it does not feel empty. It feels full, full of presence, of waiting, of things that do not need to announce themselves. The light is dim and diffused, arriving from a single high window that filters the last breath of dusk, letting it fall in pale ribbons across the floor, the bench, the edge of the nearest table. The air smells faintly of something cooked earlier in the evening. Lentils, perhaps, or garlic steeped slowly in oil, but the scent is not sharp. It is rounded, aged like a memory that lingers behind long after the event that created it has faded. The refectory is a long room, but it does not draw attention to its shape. The ceiling curves gently, bowed low, as if inviting the body to lower its shoulders to release its height. To become small again, in a space where smallness is not weakness, but peace. The walls are made of thick stone, whitewashed in some distant past, but now mottled with shadows. The uneven texture of time, of soot, of meals prepared and eaten in silence. There are no paintings, no frescoes, no icons here.
Outward.
Instead, everything pulls inward. The stones are cool, not cold. Surfaces are worn, not worn out. The entire space seems to breathe in a slow rhythm, one that does not begin with you and will not end when you leave. You feel it in your bones before you understand it with your mind. This is a room that holds repetition like a blessing. A room where nothing is rushed and nothing is forgotten. Not because it is remembered in words, but because it is lived over and over again, until it becomes part of the air itself. 3 long tables stretch the length of the room, each one simple, unadorned, built from thick wood darkened by time, by hands, by spills of broth and oil and the quiet condensation of breath in winter. The benches that accompany them are solid and uneven. Their surface is smoothed by the slow sanding of generations of women sitting and rising in the same gestures, again and again. The tables bear the marks of these lives, shallow grooves from knife blades, round stains from the base of a cup, a patch where the grain has splintered and been rubbed down with wax. These are not imperfections. These are the records of care. Nothing here is new, and nothing pretends to be. The beauty of this place lies not in its freshness, but in its endurance, in the way it has held the same objects, the same gestures, the same silence, without tiring, without changing, only deepening. On one table, slightly to the side, there is a single bowl left behind, not forgotten, but simply still present. The clay is thick, unglazed on the outside, the inside lined with a fading spiral of glaze now cracked and dulled. A small crescent of broth remains at the bottom, just enough to tint the inner curve a deeper brown. The rim is chipped on one side, but not sharp, smoothed by years of lips and hands and cloths. Next to it, on a folded piece of linen frayed at the edges, rests a spoon. Wooden, narrow, darkened with age, its bowl shallow, its handle curved from being held in the same way by many hands, some old and knotted, others young and unsure. You imagine those hands. You imagine the way they moved, slowly, deliberately, not with hesitation, but with reverence. Not because the spoon was sacred, but because the act of lifting it was. Each meal here is not a disruption of the day, but a continuation of it. The prayers of the morning carried quietly into the evening. Through the steam of lentils and the silence of shared nourishment, there are no plates, no forks, no platters spread with variety. There is only what is needed. A bowl, a spoon, a folded cloth, a crust of bread torn, not cut, a cup of water drawn from the well outside. The simplicity is not austere. It is generous in its restraint, abundant in its repetition. You feel in your own body how this kind of eating might change the relationship between hunger and gratitude. How the absence of variety creates room for awareness, of taste, of temperature, of the way breath moves between each sip, and you sense how this room teaches you, not through doctrine, but through rhythm, that the sacred is not found in what is added, but in what is preserved. The silence of the room is not an emptiness, but a presence. It is not imposed from above, but grown from within. You feel that the women who gather here do not keep silence out of obedience, but out of trust in the ritual, in each other, in the space itself. They do not need to speak because everything necessary is already being said, through motion, through pace, through the shared understanding that this hour belongs not to words, but to breath. You imagine them now, seated along the benches, each one with her shoulders slightly hunched, her eyes cast downward, not in submission, but in focus. You see the way they lift their spoons together, almost at the same moment, not in choreographed imitation, but in the quiet synchronicity that grows between people who have shared every hour of the day for years. You see how they eat without looking at each other, and yet are not alone. How presence here is not performance, it is offering. In a corner of the room, barely visible in the dimness, a jug rests on a stone shelf. It leans slightly, the weight of time shifting its base into the softness of the stone. Its handle is smooth, where hands have grasped it again and again. Its mouth darkened by water poured and dried 1,000 times. There is no cup beneath it, no basin. It is not waiting to be used. It is simply there, a quiet witness to the continuation of things. You wonder how many evenings it has seen, how many candles burned beside it, how many shoulders passed by without touching it, and yet acknowledged it nonetheless. In this room, objects are not servants to utility alone. They are companions in the act of repetition. They hold the history of use without being consumed by it. And still, the air does not move. Rather, it moves so slowly that you feel it not as wind, but as time itself. It carries no chill, only density. Thickness made not of moisture or heat, but of waiting, of stillness, of lives that have chosen to pause in ways most have forgotten how to do. You close your eyes just for a moment, and the room does not change, and yet you feel it more fully. The grain of the wood beneath your hand. The smell of dried herbs, somewhere in the folds of a shawl left on a bench. The faint echo of a footstep that may have happened hours ago, or yesterday, or last year. The refectory does not measure time the way clocks do. It measures it through texture, through wear, through silence, that returns to the same shape every night. You open your eyes, and the candle nearest you is still burning. It is small now, its base wide with melted wax that pools like soft stone around its foot. The flame does not waver. It leans just slightly to one side, casting a long, golden shadow across the table's surface. The kind of shadow that does not sharpen, but blurs, as if the light itself had learned to whisper. You do not move. You only watch. And as you watch, you feel something inside you begin to settle. Not because you have found an answer, but because the need for questions has gone quiet. This room does not explain itself, does not comfort through clarity. It comforts through repetition, through presence, through the way it remains exactly what it is, regardless of whether you understand it or not. You feel yourself breathe, not deeply, not dramatically. It's just enough to notice. Your shoulders soften. Your spine no longer stretches toward the door. The silence of the refectory has begun to absorb you, not to erase you, but to welcome you into its rhythm. You are not apart from it now. You are part of it. The stillness accepts you not because you are holy, but because you are here. Because your breath, your gaze, your footsteps, they all fold into the pattern already written into the stone. Somewhere beyond the reach of the candle's glow, near the wall where the stone meets floor without seam or flourish, a pair of sandals lies resting side by side. They are simple, worn, leather softened by years of use, their edges curled and darkened. Their soles marked by the exact shape of 2 feet that no longer need to walk far. The straps are frayed, not torn, and their placement is careful. Almost reverent, not tossed, not forgotten, but placed with the precision of a habit so deep it becomes invisible. These shoes will never be recorded in a manuscript, and never described in the margins of a saint's life, and yet they hold within them more than any ink could preserve. They speak of a life lived entirely within this rhythm, a body moved not by urgency, but by the slow call of bells, and the whisper of light through narrow windows. You do not need to see the woman who wore them. You already know her through their silence, through their patience, through the way they do not ask to be seen, only to remain. Near the edge of the table, far enough that the shadow barely touches it, a folded cloth rests in a neat square. It is clean, but not fresh, worn, but not neglected. Its weave is loose, its threads pulled slightly apart in places, as if stretched over too many laps, too many folded hands, too many evenings like this one. The edges are hemmed in uneven stitches, the kind sewn by tired fingers in the dimness of late hours. It smells faintly of ash, and of the dried herbs sometimes stored in cedar chests. Not overwhelming, just enough to catch in the back of the nose when you breathe deeply. You imagine a sister folding it slowly after the meal, smoothing it once with her palm, then again, not because she needs to, but because that is how it is done. Because the folding, the smoothing, the placing, all of it is prayer, all of it is memory. All of it is part of the fabric of this room as surely as the stones. You sit now on one of the benches, your body lowered gently onto wood that no longer startles at the weight of another. It creaks just slightly, not as protest, but as welcome. The bench does not resist, it does not question. It holds you, as it has held others, and as it will continue to hold those who come after. Your feet rest flat on the floor, your hands open on your lap, your breath deeper than it was when you arrived. You do not need to speak, you do not need to move. All around you, the room is filled with things that are not doing anything, and yet are fully present. The jug, the bowl, the spoon, the sandals, the light, each one settled into its place without effort, as if placed not once, but many times, until the placing itself left an imprint. This is not a space of performance. It is a space of stillness, practiced for so long that it has become its own language, not spoken, but felt. The spoon on the table seems almost animate now, as if the wood had memory, as if the warmth of 100 fingers still lingers faintly along its handle. It rests on the cloth, slightly angled, the edge of its bowl touched by shadow. It has been used so many times that its surface has taken on a faint gloss, not from polish, but from presence. You do not reach for it, but your eyes settle on it, with the kind of focus normally reserved for sacred things. Because here, this spoon is sacred, not because it was blessed, not because it was carved with purpose, but because it has been lifted in hunger and lowered in thanks, again and again, without ceremony, without pride. It has done its work in silence. And that, in this place, is enough. As the light continues to dim, your perception shifts. The room grows smaller, but not tighter. It draws in like a breath held at the end of prayer. The corners grow darker, the edges blur. The whitewashed walls recede into shadow, and only the center remains visible. The table, the cloth, the spoon, the bowl. The heart of the room does not ask to be noticed. It waits. It has always waited. And now that the day has withdrawn, now that the words have ceased and the breath has slowed, it becomes most fully itself. This room is not a setting for action, not a container, but a participant. Not a participant, not a place, but a presence. Time has shifted again. You do not know how long you've sat here. The rhythm of the world beyond these walls, the wind in the olive trees. The faint ringing of distant bells, the sound of feet on earth, has faded to a hum too quiet to track.
How?
You are held now by another rhythm, slower, deeper. One that does not divide moments into before and after, only into now, and now, and now again. The walls no longer feel like boundaries, they feel like breath. You are not enclosed, you are sheltered. You are not separate from this place, you are part of its stillness now. Part of the long chain of evenings that has stretched across time in this room without interruption. And though you have not touched anything, you feel that you have been touched. Not by hands, not by voices, but by repetition, by patience, by the quiet gravity of ritual performed without needing to be explained. There is something in the way this space continues, night after night, without audience, without validation, without change. The sisters who ate here today ate as those did a century ago. The same bowl, the same spoon, the same silence. This is not nostalgia, it is continuity. And continuity is its own form of grace. You do not rise yet. Your body resists the return to motion, not from fatigue, but from alignment. You have become part of the pause, and the pause has become part of you. It is the fullness of doing. It is the fullness of being, of breathing with something ancient, of sharing in a silence that has never once needed words. You look down at your own hands, resting quietly on your lap, and for a brief moment you wonder what it would mean to live like this always, to eat in stillness, to place your shoes with care, to touch each object as if it were the only one you would ever need, to move so slowly that even your shadow lags behind, reluctant to leave. And then, like the breath before sleep, the moment settles. You feel the slow release of thought. You feel the room exhale around you. Somewhere outside, a soft rustling in the trees, a door creaks, a step recedes. But within these walls, nothing stirs. The candle, now almost entirely melted, leans gently to one side. The spoon lies untouched. The bowl remains. The silence deepens, not because there is less to hear, but because there is more to feel. And in this feeling, in this fullness, in this hush that is not an ending but a home, the night continues. You rise from the bench not with intention, but as one rises from water, slowly, as though pulled upward not by will, but by the natural end of stillness. Your limbs are reluctant to move, softened by the hush of the room behind you. The refectory does not protest your leaving. It remains as it is, whole without you, yet somehow still holding your breath within its air. You step away, your soles brushing lightly against the stone floor, and the silence follows. Not in a clinging way, but like a memory that doesn't ask to be remembered. One that simply continues to echo inside you, even as the space itself fades from view. The corridor beyond is narrower than before. Dimmer, your body feels slightly heavier now, as if the absence of words and the slowness of the meal had rooted you more deeply into yourself. And so, you carry that weight gently as you turn toward the next chamber, the one where water waits. The air grows cooler as you enter the smaller hall. The walls here are less refined, rougher stone, uneven in tone, mottled by dampness that rises from below. The ceiling dips just slightly, enough to bend your posture without noticing. Light flickers from a single oil lamp tucked into a niche, its flame so faint that it seems to survive only by memory. But even this modest glow reveals what lies before you, a basin carved into the stone wall, shallow and broad, its surface dulled by countless washings. Its edges worn into a gentle slope by hands that never hurried. There is no mirror, no towel rack, no scented soap. It's only a wooden shelf above, where a stack of cloths rests folded unevenly. One corner soft and frayed, another still damp from use. The room is not bare. It is exact. Nothing here is decorative. Everything's part of the rhythm. You step forward and reach for the vessel without thinking. The jug is clay, thick-walled, heavier than it looks. Its surface is cool to the touch, mottled with pale stains where water once dried and left behind the dust of minerals. You lift it slowly, feeling the way your muscles must adjust to its weight. Not straining, just aware. The water inside sloshes gently, and the sound it makes is soft, low, like a whisper beneath breath. You pour it into the basin with care, watching how the stream curves, splashes, settles. The sound is fuller than you expected. It fills the small chamber, echoing softly against the stone, and then disappears. What remains is the stillness after movement, a stillness that holds within it a kind of permission to be slow, to be deliberate, to be quiet in ways that are rarely allowed. Your hands meet the water without hesitation. It is cold, but not sharply so. The kind of cold that wakes without jolting, that reminds the skin it is alive. You do not splash. You do not scrub. You only lower your palms into the basin, letting the water rise around them, letting it seep between your fingers, around your wrists, along the narrow bones of your hand. You lift one palm, turn it slowly beneath the faint light, and watch as the droplets trace their own path downward, as if they, too, were learning the shape of your body. There is no soap, only friction. The rubbing of one hand against the other, slow, even familiar. The gesture is not for cleanliness alone. It is a return to your body, to the evening, to the quiet labor of being present. You rinse again, and again, each time slower, each time quieter. The repetition becomes its own rhythm. It's not imposed, but discovered. The water accepts the touch without protest, does not resist, does not cool further, does not spill beyond what is needed. You feel it settle over your skin like a weightless cloth, holding you in its stillness. The basin does not empty quickly. Its shape is generous, its depth shallow, but sufficient. You realize, without needing to think, that this action has been performed every evening in this same way. In this same room, for years, for decades, perhaps even centuries, the women who came before you moved in this same pattern. Some older, some younger, some weary, some calm, all of them meeting this basin with hands that carried the day. The cloth you choose from the shelf is not the top one, but the second, instinctively, respectfully, without analysis. It is damp in parts, dry in others. Its weave is coarse, not unpleasantly so, but enough to remind the skin of texture, of pressure, of the presence of something other than air. You bring it to your face, slowly, not pressing, but resting it against your cheeks, your forehead, your neck. The cloth holds the faintest scent of lavender, barely perceptible, like a memory caught beneath the surface. It is not perfume, it is not soap. It is the echo of dried herbs once folded into linen, a comfort prepared without display.
As you pat your face,
The cloth absorbs not just moisture, but the last tensions of the day. And when you fold it again, not neatly, just sincerely, and return it to the shelf, it no longer feels borrowed, it feels shared. You linger, standing before the basin, your hands now damp, your skin tingling slightly from the cold. There is no urgency to leave, no task waiting, no voice calling, only the gentle hum of your own body settling into stillness. The light of the oil lamp dances along the basin's surface, casting ripples of shadow along the wall. For a moment, the entire room seems to move, not in space, but in time, as if each flicker of light, each drip of water, each breath, are layered over identical moments from nights long past. You feel yourself within that layering, not as observer, but as continuation. You are not the first to wash here, you will not be the last, and in that knowledge, there is no loss, only belonging. You rest your hands lightly on the edge of the basin, your palms facing downward, fingers relaxed, as though listening with the skin. The stone beneath is cool and gently rough, worn smooth in places by centuries of contact, by hundreds of thousands of fingers pressing and pausing and folding inward in the same slow rhythm. There's a groove just under your right hand, imperceptible to the eye, but unmistakable to the fingertips. The kind of hollow that could only be formed through quiet repetition. You think of the bodies that stood here before you, some tall, some bent with age, some trembling from long days in the sun or long nights in prayer. None of them left words, none of them marked the wall, but each left a breath, a gesture, a stillness. And in that quiet offering of presence, the stone received everything. In the half-dark, a faint shimmer of water clings to your skin. You watch it bead along your knuckles, gather into small curves between your fingers, and slowly fall. One drop, then another, into the stillness of the basin below. Each droplet lands with a sound so soft it almost disappears. A low echo that travels a short distance and then folds back into silence. You listen to that silence. It is not blank, it is not passive. It feels aware, as if the room itself had grown accustomed to being a witness. Two rinsed hands, two wet faces, two bodies preparing themselves not for display, but for sleep, for devotion, for something that asks nothing but stillness in return. You feel the gravity of that awareness all around you, in the walls, in the stone beneath your feet, in the way your own breath now rises and falls without needing to be managed. On the floor near the basin, a woven mat lies flattened. Simple.
Ow.
Its edges curled from age, its colors faded into the softness of dusk. A few strands have come loose at one corner, curling upward like threads reaching back toward hands long gone. You imagine a sister kneeling there night after night, not in punishment, not in supplication, but in rhythm, bending her body toward the earth as one might bow to the very breath of God, not to ask, not to speak, but to return, to remember the weight of the body, the weight of time, the weight of water slipping across the skin and into the fabric of sleep. You do not kneel now, but the mat feels like an invitation, not to move, but to stay. To accept that stillness is enough. Somewhere above you, a wooden beam creaks. Slow, low, not alarming, only present. The sound does not break the silence. It joins it. Imagine the ceiling above. Old wood held in place not by nails alone, but by the persistence of architecture, by the breath of stone pressing inward with steadiness. These beams have known the weight of winters, of wind, of voices whispering before dawn. They do not sag. They endure. Their sound, like the sound of the water earlier, is not something to react to. It is something to receive, to fold into the moment like another layer of linen softened by use. The room does not offer entertainment, distraction, or beauty. It offers something rarer, permission to stop, to let the day dissolve not in achievement, but in water. And so you do. You lean slightly forward, letting your elbows rest on the edge of the basin. You do not think of what comes next. You do not reach for the door. You simply breathe, slowly, deeply, evenly. The kind of breath that happens when the spine remembers how to loosen. When the ribs open without force, when the throat allows the air to enter and exit without resistance. It is not meditation. It is not ritual. It is simply the body untethered from time. The scent of water lingers on your hands, mixed faintly with stone, with dust, with something earthy and clean that defies naming. Your face feels different now. Not cleaner, not drier, just more present, more known to itself. The water did not change you. It revealed you, quietly, without ceremony. You straighten your posture slowly, and the light shifts across your skin. The oil lamp is still burning, its flame so small now that it barely casts a shadow. The wick leans into its own glow, curling inward as though preparing to rest. And yet it continues, not brightly, not proudly, but faithfully. Like everything in this place, it does not announce its purpose. It simply fulfills it. You watch the way the flame flickers once, then stills, then flickers again. That movement becomes your rhythm. Your eyes soften, your body stays quiet, and the moment lingers longer than you expected. Not because it is delayed, but because you are no longer measuring. You take one last glance at the basin. The water has stilled again, its surface flat, reflecting a faint echo of the flame above. There are ripples there, small, residual, the mark of your hands having passed through. They will fade soon. But not entirely. Some trace will remain, as all things do in places like this, not visible, but felt. You step back. You do not tidy the cloth. You leave everything as it is, because nothing here has been disordered. The room is complete in its quiet use. And as you move toward the next chamber, slowly, slowly, you carry that quiet with you, not as a memory, but as a companion. The water behind you grows still again, and the night in its gentleness deepens. The corridor narrows once more, and your body seems to understand what is next before your mind does. The hush deepens. Your feet land more gently on the stone. You walk as though accompanied not by others, but by the weight of sleep itself. Slow, drowsy, inevitable. The air is cooler here, not cold, but touched by the darkness that gathers after the last lamp has been dimmed. You follow a short passage that bends slightly to the left, then again to the right, as if the space were deliberately protecting what lies ahead from the noise of the waking world. There are no doors, only low openings carved into thick walls, each leading into a room not larger than a cloistered breath. You approach one of them, drawn not by curiosity, but by the subtle pull of familiarity. Though you have never slept here, your body already knows how. The sleeping cell is small. You pause at the threshold and let your gaze adjust to the near darkness within. The walls are smooth, not by design, but by the slow wearing of air, of hands, of heat. They hold no decoration, no symbol, no color, but that of earth and ash. The ceiling dips low, close enough that you feel its presence above you like a second skin. There is only one piece of furniture, a narrow cot built directly into the wall. Its frame low, its legs short, its structure unyielding but quiet. Over it, a single wool blanket has been folded lengthwise, then once more across, forming a neat square that waits without demand. There is no pillow, only a folded robe, placed at the head of the cot, worn flat by decades of use. The bed is not inviting in the way a bed might be in a warmer, fuller world. It does not call to your comfort, it calls to your quiet. You step inside, and the stillness greets you like a held breath. The doorframe, if it can be called that, narrows behind you. There is no latch, no curtain, only shadow. The floor is stone, worn smooth and cool beneath your feet. You cross the space in 3 steps and lower yourself onto the edge of the cot. Not abruptly, not as an action, but as a descent. As though the body, sensing it has arrived at the end of the day's arc, softens its joints in surrender. The cot gives nothing, does not welcome you with warmth or cushioning. And yet it receives your weight fully, without resistance, like the rest of the building. Passive, unmoving, utterly present, you sit for a while before lying down. Not because there is something to wait for, but because the transition between waking and rest deserves its own stillness. The blanket you unfold is thick and coarse, heavy in the way that some fabrics are not merely coverings, but anchors. Its scent is faint, a blend of wool, dust, and human presence softened by time. It is not unpleasant, it is grounding. You spread it across your body and feel the way its weight settles over your chest, your legs, your arms, like a second skin that expects nothing from you. It does not warm immediately, but it holds. You imagine the countless others who have pulled this same wool across their shoulders in this same bed. On nights not so different from this one, winter nights perhaps, or nights after long fasts, or nights filled with silence so total it rang inside the ribs. You do not know their names. You do not need to. The blanket has remembered them all. There is no candle here. The only light is what remains from the hallway, a pale spill of glow that stretches halfway across the floor, then fades before reaching your feet. As your eyes adjust, that darkness becomes softer, thicker, like velvet pulled slowly across the sky. You begin to make out the faintest outlines, the curve of the wall, the folded robe beneath your head, the slight indent in the plaster where someone once rested their hand again and again before sleep. There is no window, no view, no noise. The silence in this room is not silence at all. It is a density, a presence, a breath that holds everything still. It is a silence filled with breath, with blood, with thoughts too slow to take shape. a silence you enter not with your ears, but with your whole body. Your legs stretch fully along the cot now. The rough weave of the blanket presses lightly into your ankles. Your hands rest upon your belly, crossed or folded. It does not matter. There is no ritual here beyond the shape your body naturally assumes. You breathe in, the air is dry and cool. You breathe out. The breath disappears without echo. You do not count the breaths. You do not try to slow them. They've already slowed. The rhythm of the convent has done its work. The cadence of footsteps, of water poured, of spoons lifted and set down, of cloth folded, of silence held. All of it has brought your body to this moment where no more action is needed. Nothing remains but stillness. And in that stillness, the room seems to shift around you. Not in shape, not in structure, but in depth. As if the cell itself were expanding to hold your breath, your weight, your dreams. You feel not confined, but cradled. The stone, though hard, does not press against you.
Right.
It holds you like earth, like time, like memory. You feel how the night gathers beyond the walls, how the stars rise unseen, how the wind curls through olive trees and over tiled roofs, how the world continues, slow, ancient, indifferent. While here, in this small cell, the body returns to itself, not in sleep yet, not fully, but in readiness, in acceptance, in the sacred quiet that comes before the eyes close. Outside, the night continues without urgency. You cannot hear it, not directly. Your body seems to register it all the same. The soft rustle of leaves beyond the cloister walls, the distant pulse of crickets in the garden beds, the slow shifting of wood beams settling into the deep stillness of darkness. These sounds do not reach you in the way a noise interrupts. They arrive the way breath does, gently, rhythmically, unnoticed, until you are already within them. You do not need to listen. The room listens for you. And within it, the outside world becomes something distant, dreamlike, suspended beyond the reach of your body. You are not cut off from it. You are simply held in something smaller, closer, quieter. Something that has no need to contain the world, only to offer refuge from it. You shift slightly beneath the blanket, and the fabric responds with a soft whisper. The sound of wool brushing against skin, the small sigh of a thread long used. It is not friction, but memory. The bed creaks in a low, rounded tone, a voice made of wood and pressure and repetition. It is the same sound this cot has made for decades, for centuries, unchanged by the body that rests upon it. You feel yourself folding into that sound, becoming part of its long history. Not as something new, but as another continuation. One more night, one more breath, one more presence absorbed into the rhythm of sleep and waking that this room has known since long before your arrival. The cot remembers not the people, but the pattern. And you now are part of that pattern. You do not close your eyes yet, but the world has already begun to dim. The light from the hallway no longer reaches as far. The air has grown still. Even the dust, suspended in the last threads of lamplight, no longer moves. You feel the outline of your own body begin to dissolve. The sharp edges of your knees, your shoulders, your fingers, all softening, blurring at their borders. You are not vanishing, you are being gathered. Gathered by the dark, by the stone, by the weight of the blanket and the stillness of the space. There is no fear here. Nothing unknown presses in, only quiet, only breath. Only the great and ancient peace of nothing needing to happen. The rhythm of the convent is still within you. It's the memory of footsteps on stone, of cloth folded and water poured, of silence passed from hand to hand like bread. It echoes faintly inside your body, not as thought, but as sensation. You carry the warm silence of the refectory in your chest, the cool hush of the washing basin in your skin. The scent of oil and wool and dust lingers at the edge of your breath. These are not moments you remember. They are moments that have entered you gently, without resistance. You do not need to make sense of them. They're already doing their work. Quietly, slowly, like seeds buried beneath earth at night. Your breath deepens again, not by intention, not by will. The body simply recognizes that it is safe, that there is no longer anything to hold, nothing to plan, nothing to protect. The ribs widen slightly, the jaw softens. The mouth parts just enough to let the air pass through, unhurried. You feel the exhale move out of you as though it had waited all day for permission. And then the next breath comes, the next. You are not directing them. You are simply allowing. The body knows what to do in this room. The bones know how to rest. The skin knows how to cool. The thoughts still present, no longer asked to be followed. They drift, they hover, they blur. And now, without noticing exactly when it happened, your eyes have closed. Not shut, not pressed. Closed the way shutters are drawn across a window in a room where no one will knock. Closed like petals folding inward at dusk. The light behind your lids is no longer there. The air touches your skin more gently now. The sounds from beyond the walls no longer reach you. Or perhaps they do, but you have become too still to respond. You are not asleep yet, but you are near, very near. There is nothing left to do but be near. The room remains exactly as it was. The cot, the blanket, the robe beneath your head, the stone walls shaped by centuries of breath. The world does not rush. The night does not hurry. And the silence you now inhabit is not an absence. It is the deepest form of presence. Everything you need is already here. Everything you were carrying has been allowed to rest. You do not have to release it. The room has taken it from you, without question, without condition. And in return it gives you what cannot be seen, what cannot be named. A place, a pause, a sleep that asks nothing but your stillness. You are not woken by a sound, exactly. It is something softer. A shift in the air, perhaps. A change in the texture of the dark. The body, long trained in this rhythm, knows before the mind does. One breath ends, and the next arrives with a different weight. Not heavier, not lighter, just called. There is no bell yet, no footsteps, no light. But the silence has changed. The kind of silence that precedes movement, the kind that makes space for intention. You lie still for a moment, eyes still closed, but aware now. Aware not of your own body alone, but of something larger beginning to stir. The rhythm of the house, of the convent, of centuries-old sleep giving way. Once again, to sacred breath. You do not rise yet. You wait. You listen to the stillness as it begins to breathe. The cell around you is the same, yet it feels different now. Cooler, narrower, as though the walls had drawn closer during sleep. The cot beneath you has not changed, but your limbs are heavier now, softened by rest, reluctant to leave the blanket's weight. You let your breath deepen again, not to return to sleep, but to allow the waking to unfold slowly, like light bleeding back into the edges of the world. Outside, there is nothing but dark. No dawn, no color, only shadow layered over silence. And yet beyond these walls, someone is already moving. A sister in another cell, rising as you do. One hand brushing against stone, but slipping back into sandals, a robe lifted from its hook in the dark. These movements are not coordinated. They are not commanded. They are shared. And in that sharing, there is something deeply intimate. Not personal, but communal. When the bell does come, it is low, distant, like the memory of a sound rather than the sound itself. Just one chime, enough to confirm what your body already knew. It does not ring through the hallways. It does not shatter the dark. It hums, a long, soft note that lingers in the stone, in the chest, in the breath. It is not a summons. It is a reminder. A reminder that time here does not move in lines, but in circles. That the day does not begin with sunrise, but with prayer. That sleep is not broken, but opened, like a door into another kind of waking. You rise now, slowly, quietly, without rush. Your body stiff in places, your steps measured. The floor is cool, and the air is dry. And the darkness, thick as it is, no longer feels empty. It feels filled with movement, with memory, with the invisible presence of others walking the same path. You move through the corridor without light. There's no need for it. Your hand knows where the wall begins. Your feet know which stones are uneven. The rhythm of this short journey, from sleep to prayer, is embedded in your body, not learned through explanation, but through repetition. You do not speak. No one does. The hush is total. Even the faint rustle of robes, the soft slap of leather soles on stone, seems to dissolve before reaching your ears. You pass another figure, only barely visible. A silhouette shaped like your own, wrapped in wool, head slightly bowed. She does not look at you. She does not need to. You are not alone. And yet this part of the night belongs to each sister as her own. Not for reflection, not for thought, but for quiet obedience to the rhythm that gives life its shape. The chapel is not far. A left turn, then a narrow passage, then a descent of 7 steps carved into stone, their edges worn concave from centuries of midnight feet. You walk slowly, letting your breath adjust to the anticipation. At the base of the stairs, the space opens again, not wide but complete. The air shifts. It smells of cold wax, of dry wood, of old linen folded and unfolded for decades. There are candles already lit, not many, just enough. Their flames are low, steady, as though they had been burning all along, and you are only now arriving to see them. They do not flicker when you enter. They accept your presence as the room accepts your breath. You do not cross the chapel with haste. You pause just past the threshold and let your eyes adjust to the rhythm of the light. The chapel is older than the refectory, older than the sleeping cells, older perhaps than the walls that surround it. It is not grand. It does not rise upward in a gesture toward heaven. It does not impress. It encloses. The ceiling is low, the icons faded, the stone darkened by generations of breath and incense. The wooden stalls creak under weight long gone. The altar is simple, a block of stone veined with color so faint it cannot be named. You feel no need to study it. It is not for the eyes. It is for the presence, for the attention, for the gathering of breath and body into stillness once again. You walk to your place, one of many, indistinguishable, and you stand there for a moment before folding yourself down into the seat, letting the spine curve, the hands come to rest, the breath slow again. There is no chanting yet, only breath. A collective breath that rises and falls in silence. The presence of others is undeniable now. Rows of robes, bowed heads, still bodies, aligned not by command, but by habit, by love. You do not see their faces. You do not need to. You know them by the way they sit, the way their stillness moves through the air. Somewhere in the corner, a hand lifts a candle from its holder. Somewhere, the rustle of parchment, the turning of a thin page. But even these gestures feel wrapped in cloth, soundless, soft part of the dark. This is not a performance. There is no audience. There is no self to project, no voice to impress. There is only the ancient rhythm of night and word, of body and breath, soul leaning quietly toward something deeper than language. The first sound comes not from a voice, but from breath shaped into tone, low, deep, without sharpness. It emerges not as song, but as murmur. A syllable held just above silence, then joined by another, and another still. The chant begins not with announcement, but with unfolding, as though it had been moving beneath the silence all along, waiting only for the bodies to settle before rising to the surface. There are no harmonies, no crescendos, no rhythms made to stir the senses. The pace is slow, almost still. Each note held long past expectation, then released like incense into air. The chant does not speak to you. It does not explain. It is not meant to be understood. It is meant to be received, like candlelight, like warmth, like sleep. You feel the sound move through the chapel in waves. It does not fill the space. It brushes against it. It circles the altar, sinks into the wood of the stalls, passes softly over your skin. You do not sing. You do not need to. Your presence is enough. Your breath joins even in silence. Your body, still wrapped in the warmth of sleep and wool, leans slightly forward. It's not in devotion, not in duty, but in surrender. As if the sound itself asked not for response, but for listening. And you listen with more than ears. You listen with your spine, with your ribs, with your closed eyes and open hands. The chant continues. It is not a song. It is a tide. It pulls you deeper and deeper still. The candles flicker, just once, then return to stillness. The shadows on the walls dance in slow rhythm. Tall figures, bowed heads, folds of cloth. The light is gold, but aged. Not the bright yellow of a flame newly lit, but the warm brown of wax burning through the middle of the night. You look toward the flame nearest you. It does not demand attention, and yet it holds you the way it leans, the way its edges blur, the way it remains, even as the chant rises and falls. You realize slowly that this moment, this chant, this light, this silence stretched between tones, is not meant to take you somewhere. It is meant to keep you here, right here, in the breath, in the night, the stillness of not needing more. A second voice joins the first. Not to lead, not to contrast, but to fold itself beneath. Like a second thread in a cloth already woven, their tones do not blend, they coexist. Each moves at its own pace, its own weight, but always within the same arc. You begin to feel, rather than hear, the pattern forming. A rise, a pause, a soft descent, a breath held longer than expected, a syllable stretched like cloth across the body. You do not follow the words. You are not meant to. The language is ancient, the meaning distant, but the cadence is familiar. It is the rhythm of breath slowed to the pace of candlelight, to the memory of stone, to the deep dark root of the human voice. Eventually the chant quiets. It does not stop, subsides, like mist returning to the ground. No final note, no closure. It's just a long breath drawn in and not fully released. And then stillness. Stillness again, but a different stillness now. Not the quiet before prayer, but the quiet after. Not the hush of expectation, but the hush of fullness. The chapel is unchanged. The light remains. The figures are still, but something has shifted. The silence now carries weight. It hangs in the air like incense that will not settle. You remain seated, your hands still folded, your spine still curved, not out of effort, but out of belonging. You have become part of the stillness now. And you realize, not with your mind, but with your body, that this is the heart of the night. Not its center in time, but its center in meaning. It's a place where sleep and waking meet in stillness. Where the body rises from rest only to return again, more deeply, to another kind of rest. This prayer is not interruption. It is continuation. The breath of the day does not end in sleep. It pauses here, in this room, in this candlelight, in this rhythm of silence and sound. You are not being asked to worship. You are being allowed to exist, in company, in darkness, in breath. And when the body does rise again slowly, in silence, in dim light, it does so not with effort, but with permission. The flame is not yet out, but it will be soon. The night is not over, but it has turned. The others rise beside you, not in perfect time, not with exactness, but with the shared rhythm of having listened, having breathed, having sat in the same hush together. You follow. You do not hurry. You do not speak. You carry the chant in your bones now. You carry the silence like a weightless shawl over your shoulders. The chapel does not empty. It simply exhales. And as you return to your cell, to your cot, to your blanket and breath and body, you do so without transition, because prayer has not ended. It has only deepened. The darkness in your cell is no longer something around you. It has become something you are within. It is not a blankness, not a void. It is thick and whole and shaped by memory. The walls, though unseen, are still there, curving softly around your breath, and the cot beneath you has disappeared into the warmth of your own body. There is no more edge between yourself and the room. Your limbs are tucked beneath wool. Your head rests on folded cloth, and your breath floats slowly upward into a space that no longer requires sight. You are held, but not enclosed. You are wrapped, but not restrained. It is from within this softness, from within this suspended depth of night, that something begins to arrive. Not as sound at first, but as a suggestion in the air, a movement so delicate it might be memory, or wind, or the slow unfolding of stillness itself. At first, it is hardly there, a faint tension in the quiet, a barely audible gesture in the world beyond your cell. It hovers at the edge of hearing, too fragile to follow, too soft to name. But it repeats. It returns. It leans into the silence, just enough to stir it, just enough to create the gentlest ripple across the surface of your resting body. You begin to sense it not with the ears, but with the skin, the feeling that something is brushing, not against you, but against the edge of the air, somewhere outside, somewhere older than the room you lie in. You do not seek it. You do not move. You simply listen, the way still water listens to wind. And what reaches you is not voice, not language, but something more ancient, something that exists only at night, the sound of olive trees moving in darkness. You cannot see them. The grove lies beyond the walls, beyond the path, beyond even your memory of it. But your body knows it's there. You remember the shape of the trees, their thick trunks twisted like slow-burning braids of smoke, their arms bent low and wide, their leaves like small silver blades gathered in clustered hands. At night, they do not sleep. They do not shine. They do not reach upward. They listen, they breathe, they remain. And when the wind passes through their limbs, slowly, softly, it does not make noise. It makes presence. It makes the hush of leaves turning against one another with patience. Not a rustle, not a ripple. Something older, something deeper. A sound so restrained that you do not hear it so much as fall into it. You feel it before you know it. A long breath of night moving low through the garden, slipping between stones, sliding beneath doors, gliding against the rough outer wall of the convent, and then lifting, just slightly, into the outermost branches of the olive trees. The leaves respond not with music, but with texture. Their motion is not like song, but like sleep, broken only by breath. They do not resist the wind. They yield, they turn, they adjust in small, imperceptible arcs. And in doing so, they generate a sound that has no center, no edge, no beginning. It is a continual unweaving of silence, soft, thin, dry as parchment, and woven so finely into the body of the night that you cannot say when it starts or ends. You can only say it is here. And now that you've entered its presence, it is everywhere. It fills the room. Yet it hasn't come inside. It doesn't need to. The walls of the convent are not meant to keep it out. They are porous to sound, to wind, to time. The hush of the olive trees seeps inward like moisture in stone, like warmth through wool, like thought that never becomes word. You hear it not only through your ears, but through your skin, through the back of your throat, through the spaces between your ribs. It doesn't declare itself. It doesn't rise or fall like a song. It simply is. And in being, it undoes your separation from it. You are no longer the listener, and the trees are no longer a distant thing. Their sound has reached so deep into your stillness that you begin to feel it pulsing gently from within, as if the wind were not outside, but moving through your own lungs, weaving itself into your breath, becoming your breath. The leaves click against one another softly, slowly, not in chaos, not in desperation, but with a patience so complete that it quiets even your inner asking. You do not wonder why they speak, nor what they say. You accept the sound as you accept the darkness, not as a veil, but as a presence that holds you without shape. You imagine the grove in full now, not as a memory, but as something alive in the space behind your eyelids. You see its shapes without light, the wide gnarled trunks pressed low to the ground, the way their branches reach not upward but outward, their forms sculpted over decades by wind and season, drought and storm. You picture the dry earth beneath them, packed and silent, cradling their roots in sleep. There is no motion but breath, there's no color but shade. The entire orchard is still, not in the way of death, but in the way of old things that have seen everything and now speak only when spoken to by the wind. The leaves shimmer faintly in the dark, thousands of them, not trembling, not flailing, but adjusting, shifting, brushing lightly in response to the passing breeze. The trees do not resist the air, they shape themselves around it. And in doing so, they produce this ancient hush that slips through the world like a ghost without sorrow, or the sound of movement that seeks no destination, the sound of age speaking only in breath. And you, now still, become part of them, not metaphorically, not imaginatively, physically, completely, softly. Your breathing changes. Do not notice it at first, but gradually the rhythm of your chest, the slow rise and fall of your rib cage, begins to follow the pace of the trees outside. Inhale, like wind slipping between trunks. Exhale, like leaves settling after the breeze has passed. There is no control in this breathing, no technique. It simply happens, as if your body has remembered something it never learned. Something older than your name, older than your language. Your spine relaxes against the cot. Your jaw releases its quiet hold. Your fingers, curled beneath the edge of the blanket, soften into rest. You do not try to sleep. You are already drifting, not down, but outward. Toward the olive trees, toward the sound, toward the ground they stand upon, dry and ancient and unbothered by time. There is a moment, long, slow, almost imperceptible, when your awareness becomes weightless. The ceiling, the walls, the shape of the cell begin to dissolve. You are no longer held by the convent. You are held by the world beneath it. The sky is above, though you do not see it. The trees are beyond, though you do not need to reach them. The hush has expanded into every part of you. It fills your arms, your legs, your breath, your thoughts. It does not lull you. It does not rock you. It absorbs you. As if the silence were drawing you deeper into the folds of the night, where nothing moves quickly and nothing is required. You are not the observer of this grove. You are its guest, and the trees have made room for you without asking your name, without expecting your gratitude. You are simply here. That is enough. The sound shifts again. A longer breeze passes over the grove, and for a few moments, the leaves lift together in a soft cascade, a wave not of water, but of dry foliage, stirred gently in slow succession. It rises like a sigh through 100 throats, then settles again, closing inward, as if each tree were folding back into itself. You hear the movement from beginning to end, not as noise, not as interruption, but as a pulse, a full cycle of presence, a breath that touches and then releases. The wave passes and the hush returns, but now the hush is deepened. It is not quiet. It is after. You feel the echo of the wave within your chest, in the hollow above your stomach, in the palms of your hands. Your breath waits longer now between its rising and its falling. You do not hold it. It simply lingers, like the wind lingering in the roots of the trees long after it has moved on. Time becomes loose. You do not know how long you have been listening. The sound has neither beginning nor end. You could be hearing the same breeze that touched the trees an hour ago, or one that has just arrived. It makes no difference. The leaves do not care. The trees do not measure. You feel yourself float through this time without grasping, as if suspended in a rhythm that has no use for clocks or bells. The breath continues. The hush continues. The rustle changes and does not change. You are no longer a body in a bed. You're a pulse inside a silence, inside a grove that will be here long after you are not. The thought brings no sadness, only peace. And somewhere in this vast pause you remember, not in words, but in sensation, that this is not the first night these trees have whispered like this. Others have heard them. Sisters, long before you. Women wrapped in the same wool, lying on the same stones, listening to the same hush. You do not imagine their faces. You imagine their breath, their stillness, their shared experience of this sound that belongs to none and yet reaches everyone. You feel their presence now, not as ghosts, not as memory, but as rhythm, as breath that continues through time. Passed from one sleeper to the next, like a flame protected in a cupped hand. You are not alone. You never were. The breeze grows softer, or perhaps it is simply moving farther away. The rustling diminishes, becomes more like suggestion than sound. You strain to hear it, then stop. There is no need to chase it. You let the hush come and go as it pleases, just as the trees do, just as the wind does, just as you do now, lying open to the night. The edge between hearing and imagining becomes thinner. Perhaps the sound is within you now. Perhaps the leaves have folded their music into your chest, and you will carry it until morning. Perhaps you always have. There is nothing else. No story, no resolution. No image left to hold, only this hush, this movement, this rhythm. You do not know if the trees are still speaking, but they no longer need to. Their silence has become your silence. Their rootedness has become your breath. You are not trying to sleep. You are not trying to rest. You have become the quiet you were once listening to. The olive trees whisper on. You are already somewhere deep within them. You do not know when the night began to shift, It was no moment of transition, no clear threshold crossed. You were not lifted from sleep by sound, nor by light, nor by thought. You simply find yourself, softly, gradually, arriving in awareness. Not as someone interrupted, but as someone being welcomed back into the slow rhythm of the world. Your breath is already awake, already moving. Your eyes remain closed, and yet something in the air has changed. The darkness around you is not as complete. It is softened. It is still present, still whole, but less dense. As though light were not entering, but loosening the threads of shadow from within. There is no gold yet, no blue. But there is a grayness behind your eyelids that was not there before. And in that grayness, something stirs. Not urgency, not memory. Only presence. Wide, slow, and familiar. The room is silent, but not still. You feel the shape of it around you. The narrow cot beneath your back. The woolen blanket that has shifted slightly with your breathing. The roughness of linen near your throat. The stones have cooled. The air is dry. You are not cold, but you are aware of the temperature, aware of your skin, aware of the quietness inside your own body. Nothing in you rushes. You are not yet ready to move. You are simply listening, waiting, letting the body re-enter itself, piece by piece, from the long pause of night. You lie there, eyes closed, and slowly begin to sense the presence of the world beyond the cell. Not in noise, not in sight, but in a quality of stillness that is less dense, more porous. The veil of the night is lifting, not by force, but by release. And then, from somewhere outside, the first sound, not loud, not sudden, a single note, long, low, and full. It does not break the silence, it shapes it. The bell. Its voice does not reach you as metal, but as breath. You do not know where it hangs, nor how far it is, but its sound folds around the convent like water around stone. It moves through corridors and through walls, not to wake, but to invite. Its pitch is not high. It does not ask. It reminds. One tone held long, then another, and then another, slower. Between each chime, silence deepens again, not as absence, but as listening. The bell does not interrupt the day. It marks the moment in which night becomes light. Sleep becomes stillness, and the inner breath prepares to move outward. You open your eyes slowly. The darkness in the cell has changed. It is not gone, not banished, but transformed. There is now a softness to the corners of the room, faint gleam on the edge of the wall where stone meets ceiling. The shapes around you are no longer imagined. They are returning. The cot, the robe, the edge of the folded cloth. The air itself carries more weight now. It presses gently against your skin, more visible, more present. You do not sit up yet. You lie still, listening to the echo of the bell folding into silence again. You hear no footsteps, no doors, but you know others are waking. All across the convent, bodies are stirring under blankets, breaths are deepening, limbs are shifting out of sleep, and none of it makes sound. The bell has done its work, and the silence has received it. When you do move, it is without decision. Your body rises as if it had always meant to. Not quickly, not heavily. But in the same rhythm that has carried you through the night, you pull the blanket aside and swing your legs to the floor. The stone is cold, but not jarring. You pause there for a moment, seated at the edge of the cot, hands resting on your lap, eyes low, not thinking, not preparing, only arriving. The cell is simple again. It has not changed. The stone walls still carry their softness. The folded robe is still your pillow. The light is still gray. And the sound of the bell still moves gently through the silence, even if the tone has long since faded. You feel it like a vibration inside your ribs, something remembered more than heard. You stand slowly. The robe slides over your shoulders, heavy at first, then familiar. Your body is not stiff, but it is slow. It does not want to rush. It does not need to. There is time here, but no schedule. There is rhythm, but no command. You feel your feet touch the ground in sequence, left, then right, and the way your steps do not echo, but dissolve into the breath of the hallway beyond. You open the door with care, not for silence, but for presence. The wood moves easily. The hinges do not groan. Corridor outside is empty, dim, soft with the pale light of the earliest dawn. Not golden, not blue, just present. A skylight somewhere above has begun to bleed light down the walls. And in that narrow beam of day, dust dances like snow without fall. You walk toward the chapel. Not as a duty, not as routine. It's a return. The corridor seems narrower in the morning light, its shadows no longer thick, but fine and gray. The stone beneath your feet is smooth, not cold, not warm, just solid, just old. You imagine how many times these same footsteps have moved through this hallway? Not only yours, but hundreds of others. Generations. Each pair of feet walking slowly through the gray hush of morning toward the same point. The same altar, the same rhythm, same breath. You do not quicken, you do not anticipate. There is no destination beyond presence. You walk because this is the moment for walking. The olive trees remain outside, but you do not hear them now. Their whisper has been folded back into the dawn, or hush was for the night. The air inside the convent has taken on a different quality. Still slow, still quiet, but awake. You feel it in the way light enters the corners of the hallway, the way the stone no longer holds the chill of midnight, the way your own breathing has deepened into something steadier. The sound of your steps is so soft it feels like thought. You pass another figure in the distance, a shape in motion, also wrapped in cloth, also moving slowly. There is no greeting, but only breath, only rhythm. The day has not yet begun in the way the world beyond begins days. But here something has already been restored. And then the chapel, not a threshold, not a destination, but a room that holds everything you have carried and everything you are ready to leave behind. You cross its doorway like you would cross into silence, not through force, but through offering. The air inside is different, cooler, still darker, but familiar. The candles are not yet lit. The altar is waiting. The sisters are arriving slowly, one by one, each returning not to a place, but to a rhythm that is larger than them, larger than the night, larger than even the wind in the trees. You take your place not assigned, not chosen. It has always been yours. You stand still, the breath of the bell still echoing faintly inside your chest, and the light of dawn not yet full, but enough. The light continues to change, not quickly, not obviously, but slowly, as if it too has learned to observe the silence before it enters. The first rays of dawn do not pour in through the chapel's windows. They arrive like breath, long, shallow, filtered through layers of stone and glass darkened by time. They touch the floor in soft streaks that shimmer only when the dust stirs. The walls do not glow, the icons do not shimmer. Instead, the chapel seems to inhale with the morning, its stone growing warmer, its silence thickening, not in heaviness but in density. You begin to see more clearly the edges of things, the folds in your sleeve, the grain of the wooden stalls, the curve of another sister's bowed neck 3 places ahead of you. Nothing stirs beyond what is necessary. And yet everything feels in motion, not through action, but through the slow turning of the world inward, toward breath. You sit. The wooden stall accepts your weight without sound, without resistance, as if it had been waiting for you to return to it, as if it remembers you from the night before, from the week before, from the slow accumulation of presence across seasons. Your hands rest in your lap, your spine lengthens, but not out of posture, out of stillness. You are not preparing for prayer. You are inside it. The room holds the energy of things not yet spoken, not because words are waiting to be said, but because silence has its own fullness. You do not glance around. You do not shift. You do not think of what comes next. You simply sit. You breathe. You listen to the faint stirring of robes, the distant footfall of someone late, the creak of ancient wood beneath reverent weight. Nothing intrudes. Everything belongs. Outside, the sky brightens further. Not yet golden, not yet blue. Still that soft slate gray of earliest morning when shadows are long and light is heavy with mist. Somewhere behind the chapel, the olive trees stand in stillness. Their branches no longer whisper. Their hush has quieted. But you can still feel the echo of their breath in your ribs. The memory of their rustle has not vanished. It has settled deeper. It lives now within your posture, your pulse, the rhythm of your thoughts that no longer pull forward or backward. You are not remembering the trees. You are continuing them. The day does not replace the night here. It extends it, as though time itself had chosen to walk barefoot across the threshold of morning. And now, the first sound of voices. Not loud, not sung, but murmured. The soft beginning of chant. You do not recognize the words, or rather, you do not grasp them, but they are familiar. Ancient syllables wrapped in breath, shaped by centuries of repetition. No voice rises above the others. No voice seeks to lead. Each sound folds gently into the next, not like melody, but like the rising of warm air, like the motion of a shawl being drawn slowly across a shoulder. The chant does not announce the start of something. It acknowledges that something is already happening, something that has been happening long before you opened your eyes. You do not sing, but you breathe with it. And your breath, too, is part of the sound. The light now reaches the altar. It touches the stone softly, not to illuminate, but to remain. You see it stretch along the cloth across the corners of the step into the base of the chalice. The gold does not gleam. It glows from within, warmed not by sun, but by centuries. You watch it, not to find beauty, but to witness stillness become visible. A sister steps forward quietly, reverently, to light the first candle. The match strikes a faint flare, then flame. The wick takes it gently, without flicker, and the first light joins the day, not in defiance of the dawn, but in harmony with it. The flame steadies. It does not dance. It settles. And in its settling, your own breath seems to still further, like ash falling after smoke has lifted. You close your eyes, not to block out the light, but to deepen your listening. The chant continues. The warmth of the flame grows, and the weight of the morning wraps around you like wool. You are not sleepy, but you are resting. In this moment, there is no conflict between stillness and waking.
Oh no.
No contrast between silence and sound. No line between self and space. Everything moves together. Everything slows together. You feel deeply, quietly, that this is what prayer is. Not words offered upward, but breath drawn inward and released without urgency. A rhythm, a belonging. A morning that does not ask, but allows. And when you open your eyes again, nothing has changed, and everything has. The room is fully lit now. The sun has reached the eastern wall. The altar glows. The sisters are all here. No one speaks. No one hurries. There are still many hours to come, many duties to be performed, many paths to be walked in silence. But this is the beginning. The beginning in this house is always slow, always shared, always held inside the sound of one bell, one breath, one light finding its way across stone. The day has begun. Not with noise, not with rush, but with stillness. And in that stillness, you rise. You pass once more beneath the archway that separates stone from soil, cloister from garden, interior from the wide and breathing space of the morning air. There is no door to open, no gate to cross, no formal marker to announce the transition, only a soft change in pressure, in temperature, in scent. The air is different here. You feel it before you see it. Cooler, but not cold, touched faintly by green. The smell of herbs rises gently, not sharp, not sweet, just present. Rosemary warmed by early light. Time still dewy in the shade. Lavender just beginning to stir its oils into the breeze. You pause before stepping forward, not out of hesitation, but to let the moment arrive fully. The path before you is not a corridor. It is not a route. It is a place to be within. So you breathe, once slowly, as if your body must adjust again to open space, and then you begin to walk. The garden path is narrow, edged in low stone, uneven in places where earth has shifted beneath it over the years. Moss gathers between the cracks. Small weeds grow in quiet corners, not neglected but permitted. You do not walk quickly. You walk as though the path were listening. Each footstep lands with intention, not heavy, not light, but grounded, as though the soil itself receives your presence with interest. You pass beneath low branches that arch gently above, casting patterned shadows across the ground. The olive trees are nearby still, though silent now, their work done for the night. They rest in the hush of morning. Their stillness is mirrored in you. And yet, beneath that stillness, there is life.
8.
Birds begin to wake, not with song, but with soft motion. A flutter of wings behind a hedge. A shift of feathers in a nest tucked into the eaves. The world begins again, and you are within it. Not as witness, not as outsider, but as something returned. There is a bench near the path. A simple one, stone set into earth, its edges rounded by decades of weather and time. You do not sit, but you note its presence, the way it seems to have always been there, waiting without waiting. It holds no marks, no plaque, no carving. Only moss at the corners and the faint groove where a body might settle. You pass by it, letting your fingertips brush against its surface. The stone is cool, and your skin receives it without commentary. There is no dialogue between you and the bench. Only contact, only a shared moment in silence. Farther along the path, a fig tree spreads its broad leaves in gentle layers, low and generous. You walk beneath it, and the light that filters through is green. Green not of brightness, but of shadow, of breath, of pause. You feel it against your face like water, like the memory of rain. You do not stop. You continue forward, even though forward no longer feels like direction, but simply like flow. To your left, the herb beds begin. Narrow strips of dark soil, divided by rows of stone, planted with care, tended without flourish. Sage grows thick in places, silver green and low to the ground. Mint gathers along the edges, small and fast-growing, its scent released with even the lightest brush of your robe. You do not bend to touch it, but the scent rises all the same. Fresh, green, alive in the way early morning is alive. A bee hums nearby. Not loud, not startling. Just a soft vibration that passes near your ear and moves on. The sound lingers, as if the air still carries its imprint. The path curves gently here, and you follow it not because it leads somewhere, but because that is what the body does when it listens. It follows. It flows. The soil beneath you is drier now, scattered with small leaves and fallen petals. Nothing is swept clean. Everything is permitted to settle where it falls. Even the disorder here is part of the rhythm. A stone wall borders the garden on the far side. It rises slowly into view as you continue, covered in ivy that spills downward like a slow cascade of green. You pause near it, not to examine, but to let your breath catch up. The air smells different here, heavier, shaded, touched by dampness. Somewhere beyond the wall, a fountain murmurs softly, its voice faint, steady, never hurried. You cannot see it, but the sound is enough. The trickle of water over stone, the rhythm of droplets falling into a basin. Close your eyes, and for a moment you hear nothing else. The path, the trees, the birds, even your own footsteps, all recede. Only water, only breath, only stillness shaped into sound. You continue walking. Your steps are slower now, not from fatigue, but from fullness. You do not want to leave this path. But you are not afraid of the leaving either. The garden does not hold you, it allows you, it receives you without keeping you. Ahead, a low arbor comes into view. Wooden beams grown over with climbing vines, their tendrils curling in delicate spirals, tipped with the faintest buds of flowers not yet opened. The light beneath the arbor is different, dimmer, filtered through layers of leaf and branch. You pass beneath it, and for a moment, it feels like a threshold. Not to another place, but to another way of being in place. Your breath deepens. Your hands loosen. Your feet move without guidance. You are not walking a path anymore. You are being walked by it. You're part of the movement, part of the stillness, part of the garden itself. Farther down the path, where the light has begun to spread across the ground and wider, warmer strokes, the garden opens slightly, not dramatically. Just enough for space to gather around you. There is a fig tree to your right, broad and old, its bark split in deep seams, its roots lifting slightly above the soil before diving back in, like the folds of cloth in a heavy robe. Beneath its branches, the earth darkens. Leaves form a thick layer underfoot, softened by time, curled inward at their edges, faded from green to gold and gray. You pause here, not to observe, but to absorb. The tree is not offering shade. It is offering stillness. It's the kind of stillness that asks nothing, explains nothing, proves nothing. It simply is. And in its presence, you feel your breathing slow again, as though something in your ribs had remembered how to expand without effort, how to contract without hesitation. To your left, A small cluster of stone steps rises slightly, 3 or 4, uneven in height, with moss in their corners and chips along their edges. You step up slowly, the soles of your sandals pressing gently into their surface, your balance shifting forward with care. From the top, the path bends again, and now the view widens slightly. Raised beds appear in neat rows, not symmetrical, not arranged for the eye, but placed with quiet logic, as if each plant had chosen its own place and been honored. Some are empty, waiting. Others sprout with onions, leeks, kale growing low and tight. Among them, flowers have been planted, not many, just enough flashes of pale orange and soft yellow, their petals held closed, still in the morning coolness. A clay jar rests at the base of one bed, half filled with rainwater, the surface of it trembling with the tiniest ripple as something unseen disturbs the air. You do not touch it. You only pause beside it, breathing the scent of earth and green and clay. Birdsong begins now, quiet at first, then layered, like a chant rising from the edges of the world. One call, then another. Not in chorus, not in rhythm, but in presence. Some sharp, some low, some only a flicker of sound like thought before word. The birds do not compete, they do not perform. Their voices rise as naturally as breath, as the light rises over the tiled roof behind you. You keep walking, and the sound follows. It does not surround you, trails behind, floats ahead, settles gently over branches and beds like dew that is not yet lifted. The sun has now touched the tops of the walls, and a golden line begins to move downward along the stone. A slow flood of day that does not announce itself, but simply becomes. Ahead, the path narrows once more and passes through 2 tall cypress trees. Their trunks straight and dark, their branches rising vertically like lifted arms in silent prayer. Between them, the ground is covered in needles, soft and springy beneath your steps, and the scent sharpens. Dry resin, bark, the crisp echo of wood, you do not rush. The space between the trees feels sacred, though nothing marks it. There is no cross, no icon, no bench. Only the shape of 2 beings that have stood side by side for generations, framing this portion of the path not as boundary, but as reverent pause. As you pass between them, you lower your gaze slightly, not as a gesture, not out of thought, but because the body understands stillness when it meets it. And here the stillness is vertical, towering, rooted, a hush that rises higher than breath. And beyond them, the path curves for the last time. You recognize the small arch of vines ahead, Jasmine, woven carefully along a wooden frame, their green just beginning to fill in after pruning. No flowers yet, only promise. The air here smells faintly sweeter, touched by memory more than bloom. You step beneath it and feel the way shadow returns, brief and cool. Before the light opens again and reveals the far end of the garden, a small gate, closed but unlatched, made of iron, wrapped in creeping green. Not moved toward it, not yet. You let your feet pause on the last flat stone of the path, and you let your gaze rest on the gate, not as invitation, but as punctuation. This is not the end. This is where the walking stops and becomes something else. You turn slightly and take in the garden one last time, not as scenery, but as presence. The low walls, the rising sun, the fig tree still spreading its shadow, the whisper of leaves not yet moved by wind, the bird song that continues now as if it had always been there. You breathe it in, not deeply, not dramatically, just enough to feel how it settles across your skin like morning itself, light and patient. This garden is not for pleasure. It is not for beauty. It is for rhythm, for stillness and motion, for prayer not spoken aloud. Every plant, every stone, every shift of light along the ground is part of a language you no longer need to translate. You understand it now, not through meaning, but through motion. It's through silence, through being still enough to feel it. And then you turn back, not away from the garden, but toward the path that brought you here, that will carry you again. You do not need to walk it back. The garden will remain in you, its silence, its scents, its shadows. The sound of your footsteps upon stone, the weight of your breath beneath the fig tree, the gold creeping down the wall. You carry it not as memory, but as rhythm, as something your body will remember even when your mind forgets. And as you take the first step toward the return, you do so with the slowness of someone who has learned that even walking is a form of listening. You approach the doorway slowly, guided more by rhythm than intention, your breath still carrying the scent of the garden. The touch of soil beneath your sandals still present in the weight of your steps. The corridor narrows slightly here, turning inward, dimmer, not dark, but cloaked in a softer quality of air. Cooler, quieter, almost hushed as though the walls themselves were listening to the movements they contain. There is no sound from within the room yet, but you feel its presence before you cross the threshold. Not the presence of people, not yet, but the hum of a space in which repetition lives. You pause just outside, letting your hand rest briefly against the worn stone. Letting your body remember how stillness prepares itself for rhythm. You inhale. Not deeply, just completely. And then without ceremony, you enter the loom room. The air inside is different, not stale, not fragrant, but textured, a blend of wood dust, aged thread, faint wool, old oil, and something older still, the residue of years. The loom room does not breathe like the garden. It hums, a low vibration beneath silence, like the memory of movement still hanging in the walls. The light filters in from two high windows, soft and slanted, its path caught in the particles that float lazily through the air like invisible threads unwinding. You stand at the edge of the room and let your eyes adjust, not because it's dark, but because the room demands to be seen slowly. Nothing here is loud, nothing is sudden, everything is placed. Wooden stools and baskets, a folded cloth. And, in the center, unmoving but full of quiet tension, the frame of the largest loom. Upright, steady, vast in its simplicity, like the outline of a silence made visible. You do not move toward it immediately. Your feet remain still, your hands resting gently at your sides, your breath growing longer. Across the room, a spindle turns slightly, not from wind, not from touch, but from the memory of motion, or perhaps from some faint current in the air that speaks in the same language the threads remember. The room is empty, but not alone. Someone has been here already. A skein of yarn rests near the loom, its end caught between warp and weft, half-woven, waiting. The threads stretch tight across the frame, vertical, unmoving, suspended like a breath held in prayer. You walk slowly now, step by step, not with reverence, but with a kind of reverberation, as though each footfall is echoing something that has already happened. Many times, in the same rhythm, in the same room, with the same silence, you reach the stool and lower yourself gently onto it. The wood is smooth beneath you, warm from the sun that touched it earlier. Your hands rise almost without decision, as if remembering on their own what to do, how to begin, how to re-enter the dance of hand and thread and breath. You do not begin weaving yet. First you sit. You place your palms on your lap. Feel the tension of the loom in front of you, the tautness of thread stretched in stillness. Waiting not for action, but for continuity. Nothing here is urgent. Nothing here is new. The cloth will not rush to be made. It will emerge the way mornings emerge. From stillness, from repetition, from the quiet agreement between rhythm and patience. You begin with the first motion. Small, silent, familiar. Your fingers touch the thread where it was left waiting, and your body remembers the rest. You do not rush to move it. You only hold it, feeling its texture. Coarse in places, smoothed in others, uneven, imperfect, but strong. You guide it gently through the shed beneath the tight warp threads, and draw it through to the other side. There is no sound but the lightest whisper of friction. Fiber meeting fiber. As the weft settles into place, the shuttle returns to your hand like an extension of the breath you've just taken. And before the next exhale has ended, the thread passes again, back through the warp, slow and even. There is no goal.
Ow.
No finish line. No need to measure progress.
Each movement is enough.
Each thread its own horizon. The loom receives your rhythm without resistance. The wooden frame stands firm, silent, resolute, not dominating the room, but holding it, like bones hold a body. The warp threads hum faintly with tension, not audible, but sensed, like the air held in lungs before release. Every action here is both ancient and immediate. There's nothing to invent. Nothing to reinterpret. You are not a maker. You're a participant in something far older than yourself, something shaped by gesture. Preserved in patience, carried forward by repetition, you do not look for perfection. You do not fear error. The weave will hold what it must. It will bear the trace of each moment, steady hand, trembling thought, distracted breath. All of it will be part of the cloth. You lose track of time, not because you are distracted, but because time here does not move in lines. It circles, it folds, it stretches, and gathers like the very thread you guide across the warp. The room grows warmer as the sun shifts beyond the windows, and shadows stretch softly along the floor. You do not mark the light, but you feel its weight changing on your shoulders. The cloth lengthens, not much, but enough. A pattern begins to form, faint and irregular. You did not plan it. It reveals itself with each pass, like the slow appearance of stars in a sky not yet dark. Your hands do not force it. They follow. They respond. They listen through the fingertips. The cloth listens in return. At one point, you pause. Not from fatigue, not from thought, but because something in you, perhaps the breath, perhaps the body, needs a moment of stillness before the next return. You place the shuttle beside you and rest your hands on the frame. The wood is warm now, touched by ours. Your shoulders fall into their natural line. You look not at the cloth, but through it, to the way the light threads between warp lines, casting narrow shadows across the floor. The silence in the room is deeper now, not heavier, not louder, just fuller, as though it had grown to match the rhythm of your movements, the warmth of your presence. The air no longer drifts, it rests. You rest with it. You hear a sound, not from within, but beyond the room. Footstep in the hall. The creak of a wooden beam above. A door closing softly. These are not interruptions, they're part of the weave. The convent breathes in layers. One sister walks in the orchard, another kneels in the chapel, another lifts bread from the oven. And here, in the loom room, you continue the rhythm and thread. Not one task louder than another, not one voice clearer. The silence holds them all. And when you return to the loom, lifting the shuttle once more, it feels not like continuation, but like joining, like returning to a river that never ceased flowing. The fabric thickens, row after row, line after line, each one holding the memory of breath, of weight, of time suspended in the wrist. There are tiny inconsistencies now, a line drawn tighter, a loop looser. These are not mistakes. They are the texture of presence. You imagine the sisters who will wear this cloth? Not many, not now, but perhaps later, when the seasons turn. Scapular, perhaps, a head covering, a hem, you do not know. It does not matter. The cloth does not serve utility alone. It holds continuity. It holds the imprint of hands. It holds the stillness of mornings like this one. Quiet, slow, repeated. And yet the room is not closed to change. A breeze enters now through the high window, faint, tentative, carries the scent of outside. A trace of rosemary, the heat of sun on tile, the breath of trees beginning to stir again. The air moves gently across your forearms, raising the tiniest chill. You do not shiver. You do not stop. You let the breeze pass through the room the same way thread passes through the warp. Welcomed, received, not held. The thread continues. The cloth grows. And the breath within you deepens once again. Your body, too, begins to change. Not in posture, not in fatigue, but in presence. You feel more porous now, more attuned, as if the space between each thread you weave is matched by a space within you. Stillness between thoughts, between pulses. You are not meditating. You are not escaping. You are simply present in a way so complete that there is nothing outside it. Even your own story has faded. You do not wonder what time it is. You do not think of where you were before or where you will go after. The loom is not a tool. It is a doorway. Through it, you are slowly stepping into something more quiet than thought. Eventually, the moment to stop arrives. Not by measure, not by plan, it simply appears. You feel it in the tension of your wrist, in the settling of your chest, in the breath that no longer asks to be managed. You place the shuttle down one final time, slowly, reverently, not because the work is done, but because this portion of the rhythm has reached its close. The threads hold, the cloth rests. The room listens. You lift your hands and let them fall into your lap. You sit still for a moment longer, breathing the air that now smells slightly of wool, slightly of sun-warmed wood, slightly of yourself. The silence is not different, but you are. When you rise, it is not with stiffness, not with reluctance, but with a quiet shift of weight. One movement leading into another. You stand. You stretch your fingers slightly. You press the cloth down gently with your palm, as if saying goodbye, as if leaving a final breath behind. You do not speak. You do not look back. The loom remains behind you, full of presence, full of rhythm, full of the memory of stillness, practiced not once, but over centuries. And you, now shaped by it, walk back into the hallway, your breath woven into your body, your silence threaded deeper than before. You descend a narrow flight of stone steps that turns once, then again, the walls drawing in slightly with each curve. The light from above fades quickly, replaced by a dimness that is not dark, but golden. An ambient hue that seems to come not from any visible source, but from the stones themselves, warmed by centuries of flame. You walk slowly, your hand brushing the smooth edge of the wall, your breath steady. Your body following the same path that has been walked each day by women who came before you. Women who never hurried down these steps, who carried light even before they carried candles. The air grows denser here. Not stifling, never oppressive, but heavier, as though it were carrying something with it. Wax, smoke, memory, as though the very dust in the air had weight, and that weight were sacred. The steps end at a low arch, and beyond it, the candle room waits, neither chapel nor cellar, neither corridor nor crypt, but a space carved from stone with no ornament, no echo, no grandeur. The room is small, its ceiling low, its walls curved like the inside of a bowl. The light here does not arrive in beams. It flickers, it dances, it waits. You step into the space without sound, and the stillness does not break. There is no one here now. Only the shelf, only the candles, only the warmth. Before you, running the length of the curved wall, stands the wooden shelf, dark with use, its surface etched with the soft marks of time, its edges softened from years of careful hands. Upon it rows of candles in various stages of life, some tall and white, others short and golden, some flickering brightly, others trembling at the edge of extinguishing. None are placed for symmetry, all are placed for meaning. You approach with slowness, not as one who is uncertain, but as one who knows the silence must be preserved. The candles do not speak, but they do respond. To breath, to presence, to movement. You feel the warmth of them before you reach them. It touches your face like the memory of sun, even here beneath the stone. Each flame leans slightly, its shape held in soft motion. You see the differences among them. One burned low, the wick curling inward, the wax puddled around it like a small lake frozen mid-melt. Another upright and strong, its flame bright but not tall, its base clean. You do not touch them. You only stand before them, your hands loose at your sides, your breath beginning to change. Slower now, deeper, as if your lungs had remembered that fire too is a kind of breathing. You reach to your left, where the box of new candles rests, its wooden lid lifted back to reveal fresh tapers. Slender, smooth, unlit. You select one, not the first, not the last, simply the one your hand rests upon without thinking. Its wax is pale, its surface cool. You hold it carefully, upright, as if even now it had weight beyond its size. Before you light it, you pause. This is not ritual, it is recognition. You are not igniting something new. You are continuing something already in motion. A line of fire passed from wick to wick, from sister to sister, from day to day, in a chain that has no beginning and no end. You lift the candle toward one already burning, not the brightest, not the tallest, one that flickers gently, as if ready. And as your wick meets its flame, the light transfers with ease, without resistance. A kiss of fire, a soft joining, a continuation of breath. The new flame lifts itself slowly, not high, not fast, just enough to declare that it is alive. You pull the taper gently away, letting the fire catch fully, letting the wax soften at the base. The light grows steady between your fingers, and you do not rush. You do not tilt. You do not think of destination. The flame is not for you. It belongs to the room now. You turn toward the shelf and let your eyes find the space that calls for it. A gap not in the pattern, but in the breadth of the row. Between two candles, one tall, one nearly gone, there is a small patch of melted wax that seems to pulse with warmth. You place your taper there, slowly letting the base settle into the softness. It holds. It stands. The flame flickers, then steadies. And for a moment, you remain with it, watching the way its light joins the others. Not merging, not competing, just existing beside them. One small voice added to the quiet hum of the room. You step back. You do not look away. Not yet. The row is whole again, if not in symmetry, then in presence. Each candle speaks its own language. Some quick, some slow, some rising tall, in thin columns of light. Others rounding at the tip, their flames dancing like breath caught mid-prayer. The wax drips in slow gestures down the sides, forming soft ledges, small rivers, half-frozen waves. None are wiped clean. Nothing is cleared. The shelf is not preserved. It is lived. You see the history in its surface. 1,000 drops of wax hardened into a geography of devotion. No two alike. No need for order. The beauty here is not arrangement. It is accumulation. It is what happens when care does not interrupt use. You feel the weight of that, not as pressure, but as a quiet fullness in your chest. There are no windows in this room. No open air. No passing birdsong. And yet, the space breathes. The candles flicker in rhythms you cannot predict. Not in time with one another, not in time with your breath, but in their own mysterious measure. At moments one leans sharply to the side, then straightens again. Another flares and dims. Third burns low, its wick shrinking inward like a retreating thought. You do not impose meaning. You do not ask why. You only observe. You let your body soften in their light. You let your breath match the pace of the flicker. Long on the inhale, longer still on the exhale, as though your own lungs were made of flame. There is a silence here that is different from other silences. It does not absorb sound. It reveals it. The tiniest creak of the shelf becomes a message. The soft tick of cooling wax becomes a footstep. Even the pulse in your ear feels louder, like the world speaking back to itself through you. You close your eyes for a moment, not to turn inward, but to expand outward, to let the flame behind your lids become the only color in a world of warmth. It is not brightness you see. It is motion. A flickering pattern that does not stop. It's not because it cannot, but because it is not finished. Not today, not this hour. The candles do not count time. They keep it alive. When you open your eyes again, the shelf is unchanged. And yet you feel it differently now. You see not candles, but memory. Not wax, but rhythm. Imagine the sisters who lit these flames. Some earlier this morning, others last night, some long ago, some still walking these halls. Others buried beneath olive trees. Their hands passed over this same wood. Their breath leaned into this same fire. Their presence is not past. It lives in the light. Each flame a continuation of a hand once steadying it. Each pool of wax a trace of someone's silence. You do not mourn them. You do not need to name them. You recognize them by the hush they left behind. At the far end of the shelf, a small corner is set aside. A box of spent candles rests there, their wicks burned through, their wax melted and cooled into quiet shapes. Nothing is discarded. Even these remains are honored. You glance at them only briefly, and yet they stay with you. A reminder that even what is finished still holds a shape, still belongs. The used wax will be melted again, reformed, remade. The cycle will continue. And when the new candles are lit, their light will not be new. It will be made of old light, carried forward, offered again, a breath breathed again. You feel your body preparing to leave, not from impatience, not from conclusion, but from a fullness that no longer needs to remain still. You step backward, one movement, then another. Careful not to disturb the air, careful not to let your presence pull too hard on the hush. The shelf remains before you, complete in its quiet duty. The flames continue to speak, to shift, to glow. You do not look away abruptly. You let your gaze lower slowly. You let the room return to its own rhythm without you. And as you turn toward the door, Your steps land with a softness, so light it feels like you are walking within breath itself. The archway welcomes your departure without comment. The stairway beyond it curls upward again, back toward light, back toward air. Back toward the living quiet of the convent above. You ascend slowly, one step at a time, your hand grazing the wall, your thoughts quieter now, your body wrapped in something not quite warmth and not quite stillness, a presence that flickers, that remains. You do not rush. You do not look back. The candle shelf is behind you now, but its light has entered you. You carry it, in your breath, in your chest, in the steady flame of your silence. You hear it before you reach the threshold. Not as a call, not as command, but as a single note suspended in the body of evening, the final bell. It does not rise above the hush of the convent. It sinks into it, folding itself into the fabric of everything that has been slowly settling into stillness throughout the day. The air is different now, heavier with dusk, the heat of the sun having left the stones, the passageways dimming not with shadow, but with softness. You pause beneath the arch that leads into the cloister corridor. Your eyes catching the last of the fading light on the floor tiles, long golden streaks, now cooling to gray. The bell continues. Slow, measured, impossibly round in tone. It does not echo. It rests inside the air, when your breath, without needing to be told, slows to meet it. You walk now with the rhythm of that sound. One step per breath, one breath per tone. The soles of your sandals kiss the floor with silence. You do not need to hurry. The bell will ring as long as it must. Not to remind, not to signal, but simply to accompany the final gestures of the day. A folded cloth, a turned page, a quiet gaze across the inner garden. As you pass the cloister walkway, you glimpse the olive trees again, their branches barely visible now, dark against the deeper dark. Their leaves turned inward, their motion almost imperceptible. And still they listen. Still they hold.
Yes.
Their breath has not ended. It has only lowered into the same tone as the bell. You enter the chapel once more, not to speak, not to gather, but to listen with your whole body. The others are already here, a few seated in stillness, others just arriving, their robes brushing softly against wood, the sound of knees lowering to stone without effort. There is no ceremony now. The ritual is in the silence itself. The final bell is for this, not for speech, not for song, but for the joining of breath, of bodies descending together into shared quiet. The candles on the altar are few, their light subdued, flickering in low rhythm, casting slow gold across the icon's surface. You do not look directly at it. You feel its presence the way you feel your own, without sharpness, without formality, simply here. You take your place without choosing it. The wooden stall beneath you accepts your weight with the same patience as the room. You do not shift, you do not glance, you do not seek anything. You sit, and the bell continues. A long tone, then a pause, then another. Each one wider than the last, till the space between them becomes its own sound, the sound of waiting, sound of release, the sound of the end arriving without pressure. You do not know how long it lasts. You do not measure the intervals. You allow yourself to be within them, the way a shoreline accepts the tide, completely, wordlessly, without knowing when it will recede. The final tone arrives with less force than the last, not quieter, not shorter, just more distant, like a voice remembering itself, then silence, not absence, but settling. As if the sound had not stopped, but had chosen to fold itself inward, to curl like a sleeping hand into the palm of the dark. The chapel holds it. The stone holds it. You hold it. There is no movement now, no breath that rises too sharply, no sound beyond the occasional creak of the wood beneath the spine of another sister shifting gently into rest. All of you are still. Not from restraint, not from obedience, but from having joined something larger, something slow, round, steady. The end of the day is not a closing here. It is a return to the deepest part of stillness. You close your eyes, not to block out the space around you, but to enter it more fully. Inside the lids you see not darkness, but color, not vivid, not loud. Just the warm red of closed skin, holding candlelight. The memory of olive branches seen at dawn, the glint of wax cooling into form. You see what you do not name. The curve of a spindle, the motion of the loom, the hand that placed your candle upon the shelf, and through it all, you feel the breath continue, not yours alone, but the collective breath of the room, slow and low and rhythmic, as if each body had given its breath back to the space. You are not aware of yourself as separate now. You are one flame among many. One silence within silence. A sister to your left exhales quietly, the smallest sound, barely there, but you hear it as clearly as the bell before. It does not disturb, it confirms. The body speaks even in stillness. The prayer does not end with words. The evening does not end with fire. You sit, and the silence sits with you. And within that silence, you begin to feel something open. Not emotion, not thought, but space. Space inside the chest. Space between thoughts. Space between one moment and the next. The day has passed through you now. Its rhythm, its rituals, its movements have left their imprint. In the wake of all that doing, there is only being. Time no longer measures itself here. The minutes do not gather into hours. The sun has left the sky, but you do not think of night. You are inside a moment that does not belong to day or darkness. You're inside the last breath of something gently closing its eyes. The candlelight softens further now, its glow drawn lower across the floor, pooling in shadows. The wax is thinned. The wicks are lower. You do not count how many remain. You do not prepare for what comes next. You remain, not as decision, but as belonging. The room holds you in return. And then when the silence is full enough to become motion again, one sister stands. Slowly, gently, as if lifting herself not from a bench, but from the surface of water. Her movement creates no ripple, simply allows what has been waiting to continue. Another rises, then another. There is no signal, no word, only rhythm. You too rise. Not because it is time, but because the body has listened long enough to know. You step from the stall, your footfall light against the stone. No one speaks. No one looks back. There is no need. The day has gathered itself into this hush, and now it walks with you as you leave. The corridor is darker now, lit only by the last glow that leans through the small windows along the inner wall. The sky is ink blue. No stars yet. No moon. Only the long softness of dusk that does not fall, but rests. You pass beneath the arch, your hand brushing once more against the stone you touched that morning. The same texture, the same coolness, but now changed. Not in surface, but in meaning. It is no longer the beginning. It is the closing echo. You feel its stillness echo through your fingers, as though the day were saying goodbye with the quietest exhale. You return to your cell, not as one seeking sleep, but as one returning to the same rhythm, continued. The door opens without resistance. The air is cool, the cot unchanged. The folded robe still waits at the head. You do not need candlelight now. Yes. The dark is familiar. The walls remember you. You undress without effort. Fold the robe with care. Slide beneath the blanket slowly. You lie down not to end the day, but to enter the breath that follows it. The long breath that stretches from the final bell to the first light. The one that does not need to speak in order to remain alive. Your body still holds the warmth of the chapel, the hush of the loom room, the cool of the garden path. Your skin remembers the texture of wool, of wax, of stone beneath your feet. Your breath deepens again, now free of rhythm, now part of sleep. You do not summon rest. It comes without being asked. And with it comes the memory of the bell. That final tone, long and round, now silent, now folded into the silence you carry within. And the convent sleeps. The olive trees sleep. The light beneath the door fades. The sky darkens completely. And still, somewhere in the stillness, that sound remains. Not as vibration, not as echo, but as presence. As a rhythm that has passed through the body and now rests in the chest. In the space between thought and breath. In the silence that needs no name.